listening to Blue Collar Takes with your hosts, Pat and Ben.
Welcome back, everybody. Pat, how is the battle going, brother?
Dude, this battle, I feel like I'm dying. I'm not even trying to play. Like, I got sick like a month ago and it was crazy. I was out for like 4 or 5 days and now I just had food poisoning and like, I just, I thought I was going to die and then I wanted to die, right? Like, it was like, I told my wife, I said, I don't know what you did. But if you are trying to kill me, just fucking shoot me.
So I'm gonna give a little backstory to this, right? We're at work and you ate real quick, and then you were heading up to a place, right?
Yeah.
And you were gonna go do a job in a certain place, and you came. I got a phone call from you, and you're like, I am not doing well.
Yeah.
And then you came down, and I looked at you. I took one look at you, and I was like, bro, you need to get the fuck out of here. You need to go home.
Mm-hmm.
It was blatantly obvious that you were not doing well. But that was before you went downstairs and
Mm-hmm.
continued to puke and do stuff and then
Yeah.
came upstairs and you're like, yeah, fuck this. I'm out. And the
Yeah.
concern was at the time, neither of us knew that you were going to be able to make it home because you
No.
looked fucking terrible.
Dude, I thought I was gonna pass out.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look pretty bad. I mean, you like ghostly white. You look like I'll be honest with you, bro. I was a little concerned you had something going on internally that wasn't like, how many times did I ask, like, do you need an ambulance, bro? Do you need me
Yeah.
to like,
Dude, I told my wife that. I said I don't think they wanted me to leave. Like there was talk about having someone drive me home. There was talk about me going in an ambulance. I'm like, no, fuck this. After I puked, I was like, I've got about 45 minutes, I think. And I'm gonna scream home.
yeah,
And
you,
I had 45 minutes and I almost puked in my neighbor's yard.
you did not look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
battle. Ugh.
it was horrible. It was horrible.
But you're feeling better now.
I mean, I still really haven't eaten anything. That was what, a week ago?
Yeah.
I I'm still barely eating.
Well, it's a
But
hell of a weight loss plan,
yeah, I mean, yep.
dude.
I I don't yeah.
You go big when you go. Like it's go big or go home for you.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just gonna blame it all on the vaccine.
Okay. I mean, maybe there's probably not.
I've
There's
never
probably
been
probably
I've
some
ne
things.
I've never been this sick so often
Yeah.
than this point.
I mean, we're starting to see stuff come out about the vaccine and like singular, it makes your immune system singular over COVID, like whatever. And little things can have an effect and mess with you. And so there may be some truth to that.
Now the food poisoning thing, I'll let the vaccine pass on that. That was very clear that it was food poisoning. However,
It became pretty clear to me as soon as you
yeah,
ate and went upstairs, you're like, I am not doing well.
yeah. It went from like a great night, like it was going by pretty quick. I felt really good to like I wanted to die in
Yeah,
like about an hour.
it seemed like 35 minutes.
Hmm.
It seemed like your world came to a halt in 35 minutes. And then it seemed like you were struggling at both ends to
Oh
make
yeah,
sure things were okay.
yeah. Things were not okay.
Yeah, I could tell.
They were not.
Yeah, that's crazy. But we
Hmm.
had plans. I mean, we obviously had planned to podcast a couple times.
Why is it
And
always my illnesses that fuck up our plans?
well, if it's not you, it's obviously going to be me, right? And I've
Yeah,
had a couple
yeah,
on my
for
end
sure.
too. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just life, bro. And it's this season, right? I mean, it's when shit's going around. So,
Well, and it got cold so fast here.
oh yeah,
Like we were at minus 13 wind chill yesterday.
yeah, yeah,
Like what the hell? It was 55 degrees last weekend.
yeah. I know, and I didn't. tell you this, the last podcast we did, I was battling my furnace went out the last podcast.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, so I was burning because I when we bought this house, I made sure because my prepping side of me might have to have a plan for fucking everything, my
For sure.
preparedness side.
Yeah.
I made sure we had multiple sources of heat.
Hmm.
So we were burning wood to keep the house warm. And
Yeah.
burning wood kept my house at between 55 and 62 degrees.
Well, that's pretty good.
It wasn't bad. And I was able to, it was the control board. My father-in-law came over. He's an HVAC guy. He's retired.
Perfect. Yeah.
So he came over and we ripped my furnace apart, found out it was the control board, ordered the control board. I got the last control board for my furnace that they had. The next time around, I'll have to upgrade the control board, which will have me swap out the igniters and change a whole
Hmm.
bunch of shit. I didn't want to do that, so I just bought the control board and I was going through 6 days of,
Yeah.
burning wood 24/7
Hmm.
to keep my house heating. I was afraid in that last cold spell, which isn't this cold,
Hmm.
wasn't this cold, that my pipes are going to freeze because it was dropping down. I think we were like 2 below that last cold
Yeah.
stretch.
Yeah.
And this cold stretch, you go outside and it's like I like to call it, it's nose hair cold.
Yeah. It's miserable.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I,
it's
I honestly like, it's funny to say that because like in January, February, when we're going to be outside working or whatever,
mhm,
like we're going to be fine. It's just how crazy this season has been, where it
right.
was so warm and then it dropped super quick and then it warmed up again and it
Right.
dropped. And now here we are.
Yeah. I mean, it's up and down all the time, right? You gotta love it. It's the Minnesota weather. I mean, it's the only place on earth where I can it's there's not many like this, right? Where you can say in the summertime it's 103 degrees with humidity that makes it feel like it's 115. And then in the wintertime it's 20 below with wind chill that makes it seem like it's 60 below. I mean, you're not gonna find many places on the planet like this. You know what I mean?
Well, you
The
you look at
extremes.
like what they do for when they build buildings and bridges and all that stuff. They do the same stuff here that they do in California for earthquakes, but ours is for temperature swings, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yep.
Why
Yeah.
are we here?
My wife said the same thing. She's repeatedly said that, we should just take jobs in Arizona or we should take jobs somewhere down south,
Dude, for
stay
real.
warm and just be happy in it. And then I keep telling myself, well, no, because I have this hunting property that I love to visit and I love to go to. And I do love the temperature changes and winter isn't the same without snow, but I could do without the cold. I've come to the
Hmm.
realization that I the right amount of snow for me is the amount of snow that's on my driveway right now, where I don't have to shovel, I don't have to plow, and it'll be gone in a week, and then it
Yeah.
can snow again and do the same thing all over
Hmm.
again.
Yeah,
You know
just
what
a
I mean?
dusting.
Just the dusting,
Yeah.
just
Or it
enough to get
doesn't
the feel.
and it doesn't it's dry snow, so it's not like it's causing the roads to be slick or anything. It just
Right,
blows off, right? Like,
right. That's all
yeah,
I need.
that's perfect.
I'm good with that. We have a lot to talk about. I mean, there's
Yeah,
been some craziness.
we had so many plans,
No, I know.
right? Just on
Yeah,
the what was it? The lady from Vietnam? It was Vietnam, right?
yeah,
The real estate lady that embezzled 11 or $16 billion and got sentenced to death.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, what
How?
the good news? Yeah.
How?
How do
How?
you steal 5% of the country's GDP from
GDP
the government?
from the government. Yeah,
It's 5%.
yep, yeah. That's
Uh,
a ridiculous amount of money.
the good news is she can save her life if she repays $11 billion.
Yeah, I heard that. That bitch gonna die.
However, you're still doing life in prison.
Right, right. Uh, I can't believe. I mean, there's been so much. I mean, you had the New
South
York
Korea,
shooter, South Korea. Yeah, South Korea is going nuts right now with
they're
all the
still
crap they have going on.
they're still going crazy. They're now that party has gone against them, so they're going to vote tomorrow, I guess,
Yeah,
on impeachment.
impeachment, and you've got France. You got the crap going on in France right now, where Macron's prime
Hmm.
minister got ousted for a
Hmm.
budget plan he put in place, which to tax everybody to death, pretty much.
Well, so not only that, remember what France did, right?
Yeah, they rigged it, right?
They're,
I
they
mean,
they the two left parties
United, right? And
dropped dropped hundreds of candidates
right.
out of the races so that Marie Le Pen's
Yep.
party, the Conservative Party, would
Conservative.
not take the majority.
Right.
And so by doing that, none of the three parties, no one has control. So
Right.
now it's a he might lose. I mean, he might get kicked out.
It's insane. So I mean, they've ousted the prime minister. Uh, Macron's got a chance to appoint a new prime minister, but when that'll happen, nobody knows. And all of this is coming from Macron needing to pay off his debts because
Hmm.
they can't keep doing what they're doing. Their
Right.
GDP can't make up what they've done with all the money going to everywhere and all over the place.
Correct. And remember that the farmers have been protesting before that last election, right?
For a long time. I mean,
Hmm.
there's been protests going on for 3 years now in
But they were
France.
dumping like cow shit in the middle of the
In the
streets.
streets. Yeah. Fuck you. You want to take away. And I remember the farmers where their protests are coming from. It's the same thing in Germany and a lot of other places in the European Union, is they're trying to kill big farming because of climate change.
Yeah. Yep.
So they're trying to make it so hard for farmers to farm that it's more beneficial for them not to, and the government's going to take over farming. And remember, this is the whole Bill Gates eating crickets push, all that crap. That's been
Hmm.
recommended in the
Hmm.
European Union. As it turns out, a whole lot of farmers are like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Here's some shit in the middle of your street. I don't want to play your
Hmm.
game.
Yep.
The world is starting to push back a little bit against the people that are trying to make the laws and the rules on this grift that's taking place. I think the world is starting to wake up and see that these rich people are just trying to enrich themselves and make you eat fucking bugs,
Yeah.
right? I mean that's really what's going on. And it's funny because now you're starting to see these groups of people panic. I mean, they've got, Trump moving into the White House. They got RFK on the cuff of if he doesn't get into the administration, it doesn't
He's
matter.
getting he's getting in.
He's getting in, but even if
He's
he
getting
doesn't,
in.
by some miracle
Hmm.
in the Democrat side, Trump's just going to put him in an advisory role, and he's still going to get in. He's still going to run shit. You've got what is
Yeah.
coming is going to happen.
Yeah. It's
This
gonna
is
happen.
happening.
Yeah.
It's not going to not happen. Trump, and his last go around, made promises to the American people, and he kept it overwhelmingly. He did what he could do with the Congress and the Senate that he had, and guess what? He's got both, and
Mm.
he's going to keep for 2 years. That's why he wants Doji to get their stuff done within the first 2 years. That's why he wants RFK to go hard in the first 2 years because he knows he can get a bunch done in the first 2 years. So
Well, I
it's
think
coming.
I think that also, obviously that also the first 2 years isn't just it's for the election, right?
Right.
So when you see stuff like you can go after things, right? Like you can
Right.
you
He's
can
got
you
2 years of
can show like, hey, this is what that's done.
absolutely.
It's not gonna take 2 years for a lot of it. It's not
No,
gonna take 2 years.
no. But
But
he has 2 years until the next election where he can lose Congress or he could lose the Senate. And he knows he has to get his entire agenda at least pushed through or started within the first 2 years
mhm.
because who knows? Are we going to give him a House and a Senate in the next two? He doesn't know. So he's got 2 years to get his agenda through and he's going to push hard. And that's why he's going so hard. So it's going to be, like you said in a few podcasts a while back, you pointed out how many things he did in the first couple days of his, executive orders and stuff that we've been talking about. Like a lot of this is going to go through an executive order if he didn't have the House and the Senate, and even if like the Republicans try to stand in his way, that's what he's going to have to do with a lot of it, right?
Well,
But
I
it's going to
so
be fast and furious.
so that's kind of a I think last time we talked about that, I was yeah, I was referring to stuff that probably shouldn't go through executive order, but we'll
Mhm.
probably have to, right? Like so
Right,
stuff that will probably get thrown out or
blocked.
hammered down, right?
Right.
Watered down, if you will. However, doing a little bit more reading on some of the stuff, a lot of the Doge stuff will be executive order, and it
Mhm.
will be just aligning with that court case, right? I can't remember the name of the court case, but the Supreme Court case that ruled that the agencies were doing too much, right? Like
Yeah, acting out of
some of the regulations
constitutional
that
compliance. Yeah.
were causing um essentially like if it was some way to charge people money, right? Like that all has to come through Congress, right? So anything that was financially related, they said that that those laws needed to come out of Congress so that they
Right.
weren't allowed to do that. So a lot of those are just going to be what I'm saying, I guess, is that I don't think there's going to be amount of executive orders that I thought before. There's going to be more, but they're going to be different. You know what I
Right. I
mean?
mean, so
So like
anything that was
I think he's going to get a bunch of people to help him get a lot of the stuff that I was worried he was going to have to do through executive order done. But
right,
then there's a lot of stuff that he's going to do through executive order that is the appropriate channel. And that's
right.
just scaling back all those bureaucrats that were writing regulations that shouldn't have been.
Those are going to be, yeah. I mean, what you're talking about here is going to be more cutting the fat off of an already
Correct.
existing bloated budget, right? Anything that's got a
Hmm.
congressional budget tied to it is going to go through Congress. You've said that in the past, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But he can also use the constitutionality of what these entities are doing to limit a lot of what they have. And I think that's going to happen. And now you're
Yeah.
seeing the Republican Party starting their own Doge party. It's like a new revamped Tea
The
Party where
the
all this,
caucus.
yeah,
Hmm.
they're starting it within the Republican Party themselves. And people are starting to ally with that and line up. And now it's really starting to expose the rhinos. I mean, everybody knew who they
Correct.
were to begin with, but it's
Hmm.
leaving them on an island.
Hmm.
So and I think that's a wise idea because in 2 years they're going to be primaried and the chance of them being gone.
Well, and I think that's pretty interesting too, because
Mhm.
that's like how Pete Hegseth is getting his support now is by going that route, right?
Right.
Like they are Charlie Kirk and who's the other one that was Bannon, and there was one other person that was going after him and basically like, listen, you're gonna do this, or we're gonna primary you and you will lose.
Oh, absolutely.
You will lose.
Yeah, well, you've already the American people spoke. It was a sweeping victory for they spoke. They believed what
For
Trump is
sure.
saying and they
For sure.
want the change,
Well,
right?
they just want change, right?
That's it.
Like
That's
even
everybody
if they
wants it.
don't like Trump, like people voted for Trump because of RFK
They
and
voted for him for
Tulsi,
change.
and they
Right.
voted for this coalition.
Exactly. I mean, we've been saying it since the beginning of this podcast. This is what he needs to do to fix
Hmm.
what needs to be fixed. And now the people said, yeah, I get it. This is what should happen.
Yeah, let's
If
try it.
they try to rebuke this change, if you
Mhm.
stand in the way for it, you're going to get fucking steamrolled. And they should. They absolutely should.
100%.
Uh, man, there's so much to talk about, dude.
I know
So much.
every one of these topics so far, and I think we're like what 20 minutes in,
Mhm.
uh, could be its own podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's
Uh,
so much about all of it. I mean, we haven't
I
even talked about Syria. We haven't talked about the pardons. We haven't talked about like all this stuff. It's
I've got it all written down here that I want
yeah,
to go over, and
yeah.
I don't even know where to start. I guess I want to start with well, I want to start with Syria because that has a national security implication that is massive. So
Hmm. Do it.
for those that aren't who are living under a rock, Bashar al-Assad fell, right? Bashar al-Assad
Or
was
you're
the
very sick and had no idea what was going on.
correct, correct. Uh, Bashar al-Assad fled the country. He left Damascus and um
Moscow? Is he in Moscow? I
he's in
heard.
Moscow.
Okay.
He's in Moscow with Russia. And Russia, this is a thing like um for those who don't know, Putin had put troops in Syria to prop up Bashar al-Assad's regime. Bashar al-Assad has been fighting a civil war for I don't know like 12, 13 years against rebel forces
Hmm.
and the rebel forces have been backed by the United States government. Obama heavily backed the rebel forces and Russia heavily backed Assad's forces, right? And they fought to a stalemate. Bashar al-Assad retained power, but the rebels retained a lot of places like I think it was Aleppo and all these other places that they just couldn't break the gridlock, right? Well, Russia went into Ukraine, and as it turns out, Russia got bogged down in Ukraine and pulled forces and
Hmm.
didn't have the ability to fight a two-front war. And I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship here. I think this is a very wise I'm going to go on the adversarial path here. This is a very wise decision by Putin to pull Bashar al-Assad out of Syria and to just turn the country over. And I'll explain why here. Um, the rebels took Syria and they now have control of it. And the rebel forces, people aren't, it's being underreported. The rebel forces were being bolstered by Al Qaeda. So Al Qaeda in Syria
Hmm.
has now taken over Bashar al-Assad's weapon stocks, his weapons plants, his chemical weapons, his biological weapons. He's even got what some are referring to as radiological weapons, or probably nuclear weapons of some kind.
Hmm.
Um, and now Al Qaeda has that, which has now left the United States, and Israel is carrying out airstrikes left and right because they can't afford to have any of those weapons fall into the hands of anybody who's going to funnel
Hmm.
them back to Hezbollah.
Hmm.
So here's the interesting thing, and this is what it just blows my mind. Um, I don't think very many people are tracking that Hamza bin Laden is in charge of Al Qaeda. Hamza bin Laden was Osama's son. He was not killed in the compound raid. He lives in northern Afghanistan. He is in control of Al Qaeda, and he has a 30-year plan to unify the caliphate, right? And the crazy thing with Hamza bin Laden that people aren't talking about that has been out there for a couple of years now is he is um unifying ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, uh factions in Somalia. I mean, Al-Shabaab. He's unifying these terrorist forces under the same banner. Um, they're each their own entity, they're each their own organization, but they have the same plan. They want the caliphate. And that's never been done before, and that is extremely fucking dangerous. And there is plans that aren't being talked about that you're going to find out soon, um, of attacks on the homeland again here. They have plans to carry out October 13th style attacks, like what happened to Israel, October 7th style attacks here in the United States. Um, and that's terrifying.
Hmm.
So, Putin pulling Assad out of Syria and saying, fuck it, you're not ever going to win that country fully over again. You're done. I can't keep propping you up. Let's pull you out, bring you here, and let the United States and Israel have to deal with all the bullshit that's going on in Syria. Um, that's a master play.
Hmm.
People might see it as a loss and they're going to talk about it as a loss. That's it's not a loss for Putin.
No,
That's giving terrorists that hate the West weapons that can be used
hmm.
against the West through
Hmm.
no fault of his or Bashar al-Assad's, because they couldn't hold on to the country that the United States then was pushing to overthrow. So now the United States has overthrown another dictator who kept terrorism under its own wraps, right? And has turned over a stockpile of weapons to terrorists that will use it against the United States and Israel. That's a master plan on Putin's behalf.
Yeah.
That's scary because obviously now we are screwed. And when you compile this with a lot of other things that are taking place within our own borders, like we don't have a fucking border and we got all this drone bullshit going on and we have all these things that are taking place, it's kind of scary because uh you have the potential now for the very first time a terrorist organization has chemical weapons like sarin gas and
Hmm.
VX gas
Hmm.
and all the shit that Assad supposedly used against his own people in what 2015, 16, 17, whatever it was. Um, uh, he was accused of gassing his own people.
Yeah, I was
So
during the Trump administration.
I don't know if it was Trump or if it was right before Trump. I don't know who it was or when it
Maybe it was
was.
in between. But I know
I,
Trump did, because then Trump called Russia, and that's when they took out that airfield, and they said like, "Hey, look, we know you got troops there, but we're bombing the shit out of this, just so you know."
yeah, he called the deconfliction line, told them to get
Yeah.
the troops out of there because they're going to take over the airfield. Yeah, that was Trump, and they destroyed that airfield.
Yeah.
Um,
Put a crater about every 3 feet.
yep, and that the response to the airfield being destroyed was when the Russians were attacking American forces and lied
Hmm.
and said they weren't attacking American forces.
Hmm.
And they used the deconfliction line again, and Trump said, "Hey, is there anybody attacking American forces that are Russians?" And they said, "No, there's no Russian forces attacking Americans." And Trump said, "Oh, good, because we're about to destroy them." Hung up the phone and then proceeded for 13 hours to kill every Russian. And
Yeah.
and
No, you said they weren't yours.
there were 3,000 of them, and he
Yeah.
killed every one of them. And
Yeah.
I think they left a couple alive or whatever. Some had to survive to tell the story, but it was just
Hmm.
you know uh, apocalyptic what happened to those guys. But
Yeah.
uh, so a master play on Putin's behalf. If you thought like it was a good idea to overthrow Syria and let Hamza bin Laden and the Al Qaeda operatives in Syria have the weapons, I now have some friends on the ground in Syria much like they were in Benghazi, where they had to take back weapons that the United States had given terrorist organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood, which turned into ISIS, which is
Hmm.
what happened with Hillary Clinton. They were there. We were buying back weapons um, that were our weapons that had fallen into the wrong hands, and that the Benghazi style shit happened. I now know a couple of buddies of mine who are over there doing the exact same thing, trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And the United States is in a precarious position where we can't allow weapons shipments to be made to move into Middle
Hmm.
Eastern countries like Iran, which is where these weapons are going to go. So
Yeah.
they're harbored and they're safe, they're safe.
Hmm.
And you can imagine that right now there's fighter pilots carrying out airstrikes against convoys of weapons, probably on a daily basis that we're not going to hear
Hmm.
about for a while, but it's taking place.
Yeah.
And Israel, we are hearing about it. Israel's hitting them left and right. They've even moved people into Syria, so
Hmm.
they have troops on the ground to try to cut off that corridor of weapons leaving Syria and being able to make it across Iraq and into Iran. So,
Hmm.
um, it's a fucked up situation right now that's taking
Which,
place.
I mean, when you think about it, like they said that, I mean, you look at Blinken's in Iraq, right? Right
Hmm.
now, talking to the Iraqis about what the fuck they're gonna do because they need to go through Iraq to get.
Just to get to
So
Iran.
yeah, so
Um,
I don't know, man. It's fucking crazy, but I don't even know.
I uh, I just the underreporting about Al Qaeda right now, how Al Qaeda is reemerging and how they're changing their game plan.
Hmm.
There's no reporting on it. Um,
Well, why
there's
is that, Ben?
well, exactly right, exactly.
Right?
I mean,
If I promise you that if it was a Republican in the White House, there'd be reporting on it.
100%, 100%. I our media system, our media apparatus is so broken.
Hmm.
It's it's so divided and so broken and so controlled. And a part of this too, um, I don't want to say this, but I feel this. They want another 9/11. They want another 9/11. And when I say they, do I mean like Trump? No, absolutely not. Do I mean RFK? Nope, absolutely not. What I mean by they is that is the deep state. The deep state wants another 9/11. You cannot fundamentally reshape the Middle East to get where they want to go unless you can topple the Middle East. And this is yet another way of them doing that. And I can't I it just blows my mind. Ron
Just like,
DeSantis is the
mhm,
only governor in the entire state or the entire country that went to his state and local officials and has briefed them on this new threat that has come out. It's out in the open. It's been out in the open for maybe 3 to 6 months that this has taken place. And he's the only one who is putting together a response plan to let his people know and his state officials, his local officials know. Nobody else has an idea. Nobody.
yeah.
Um, put that in perspective. I want to everybody's probably seeing like, the East Coast is having all these drones fly over. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. And they've got videos of these drones that are like, they're not planes. You can hear the motors. They're not planes. They're not helicopters.
Hmm.
They're fucking drones and they're big.
Hmm.
Um, and there's all this speculation as to what they are and blah 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 blah. And we'll cover that too, I'm sure. But
Hmm.
um, put that in perspective. We know that Iran likes to use drones. We know that uh, other countries are starting to use them, like Ukraine against Russia. Russia's using them against Ukraine. It's the next step in warfare.
Hmm.
Unmanned is the next step in warfare. And why
Well,
is unmanned the next step in warfare? Because Iran can't compete with the United States military unless they use unmanned. They have to,
correct.
right? So put that in perspective of like how dangerous of a situation we are now facing. You have a country that's not taking a threat seriously. We have an intelligence apparatus that's broken and it's not targeting our enemies abroad. It's targeting people within, right? It's being used to manipulate people within, being used to manipulate elections. It's being used to uh, bolster a deep state apparatus that's in it for money and a grift, right?
Hmm.
Um, and now you have something where our own country, kind of like the fucking spy balloon that flew over our country and didn't get shot down until after gone over an entire nation. You have drones on the East Coast that nobody can tell us what the fuck they are. And now you have the potential of chemical weapons falling into the hands of Iran through its proxies, which are Al Qaeda in Syria. That's a fucking recipe for disaster. And one governor, one, is taking it serious enough and telling his people about it. I'm sure Abbott will follow suit. I'm sure Nome will follow suit. I'm sure others will once they get a hold of it. But it's just a matter of people believing what's coming out of the intelligence apparatus that are going rogue in this regard, which is where this is coming from. It's coming from CIA operatives that are going rogue and putting it out there. Sean Ryan's going to have the gal on his podcast here shortly, who's put this out there, and she's getting shit on for it because she's exposing information that they are saying is classified, but it's gone through unclassified channels. So she says it's not classified.
Sure.
And our government won't touch it.
Mhm.
If you haven't seen that episode, I haven't either. I've only seen a snippet of the preview. We all need to go over there and check that out and
Yeah.
see what the fuck this is, because this does not sound good.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, it's the whole drone thing, like, and we talked about it in one of the episodes about all this shit, right?
Mhm.
You saw that dog that had the fucking machine gun
robot dog.
mounted, yeah, machine gun mounted to it. We talked about the AI outmaneuvering all of our top fighter pilots,
Yeah. Well, even
all of that stuff.
the targeting system that you found where
Yes, that you can't. It literally it
it
does
kills
not
you.
miss. Yes,
It's
it's like
100% effective.
kill shot 100%.
This is the next wave, and
Mhm.
it's terrifying and it's scary. But
You remember that video of that room of all the robot dogs, and
yeah.
then they had one with the weapon system mounted on it.
Mm-hmm.
You combine that with that targeting system,
China
and you
did.
have yeah, that's what I'm saying.
China
Like,
did. China
yeah,
just unleashed a video, and they have a bunch of these robot dogs going through
hmm
the process. They have a couple that are meant like basically it's a force multiplier, what China's using it as. They have a bunch that are pack mules that'll follow their infantry troops on the ground, and then they have a bunch that are there to act as advanced weaponry that are mounted that will be able to engage and take shit out. It's being controlled by vehicles in the rear.
yeah,
That's fucking terrifying.
yes. You get 10,000 of those things.
How do you fight that? I mean, you
You
have to drop
cannot.
bombs. Yeah,
Everyone's dying.
that's right. I mean, and I think that's uh, the new model of war is going to be a war of attrition, right? Who's going to run out of money first? Because they're just going to do unmanned in the air, unmanned on the ground, unmanned in the sea, and whoever runs out of money first loses, kind of, right?
Yeah, I guess
Or
so. Or who's willing to sacrifice
exactly.
everything for themselves, right? Like, so like how do you beat all that stuff? An EMP? Well,
That's exactly it.
that takes out all your power,
Hmm.
takes out every electronic that you have in any area. So
Exactly.
what do you do?
So it's kind of funny because one of the things I wanted to talk about, because we have a lot to talk about, and we'll
Hmm
get there. But I wanted to the funny thing you brought that up because I am starting to really grow concerned with people's levels of being prepared. You know
hmm
what I mean? Like, I don't think the average person in this country understands like how volatile a situation we have on the ground right now is.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm not just talking like um a terrorist attack, right? I'm talking like we have Chinese citizens on the ground that we know are training with weapons. We know that. They came through the border and they're outside military bases that's been reported on. It's been videoed. They're training with American weapons. We have several cartels and gang members that have come across the border that are operating in the United States now. Dangerous cartels and gang members. Um, we have known terrorists that have come across the border, were caught, and then let go into the fucking country that are ISIS members, Al Qaeda members. Like, why? I have no fucking clue other than that w- uh, our processes aren't working, right? And
Mhm.
now we're in the situation we're in with tech and everything else. And if you're not if you don't understand, like if you're not out and about in public, I'm not telling everybody stop going out in public. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. But what I am going to tell you is you have to know your surroundings in public spaces at this point. You have to pay attention. You have to be situationally aware at all times.
Mhm.
And that's not just, I mean, it's from ourselves too. It's carjackings that are taking place. It's, crime that's on the rise that now the FBI is finally starting to report accurately. It's all sorts of things um that you have to be aware of, but you have to know your situation, you have to know your surroundings, you have to know where your nearest exits are and have a plan on how to get there and how to flee, to get to your car, to get out of there, whatever it might be, right? You have to understand the threats that are out there, like gang wise, cartel wise, even the threat of like a October 7th or a like a Hezbollah style attack or Hamas style attack that has taken place in Israel. You have to know that that's the potential that could happen here as well, and you have to be ready for it. And just you have to be prepared to get your ass out of a situation if you come across that. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
on the other side, you need to be prepared at home as well. Um, and I don't think people they're not ready for it. They're not.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So right back when our parents were kids, and you had the arms race with the Soviet Union, they were prepared for a a, a nuclear disaster, for nuclear attacks, right? Um, there's none of that. There's no preparation for anyone right now. We just watched how people struggled so mightily after the
Well,
hurricanes came through and the floods.
not only that, go back to the lockdowns,
Absolutely.
right? Like stores were out of stuff. Like people
Yeah.
are freaking out.
And if everyone should, and I hate to use FEMA as an example because of what how poorly they've done over the last decade. Um, uh, FEMA's own website recommends that you have 3 weeks supplies, water and food to get you through because that gives them a chance to get people on the ground, to get you evacuated, to get you to a Red Cross center, to get you
Hmm.
the help that you need, right? Everyone should have 3 weeks of food and water on hand. Now, I want you to understand, like, if you are in your house and you're in this climate right now, it's like 9 below outside. 3 weeks of food and water for you is you have to have more than that. You have to have the ability to keep your ass from turning into a popsicle, right? And people don't get that. Like you brought up like the grid situation where they're going to take the grid down with an EMP. That's exactly what they have to do.
Hmm.
The scary thing for me is the training that I have with an understanding of like weapons of mass destruction. Like you get that in the military in limited forms, and then some people get it in more a higher capacity. Since we were looking for weapons of mass destruction in the last war that I was in,
Hmm.
we got a healthy dose of what the categories of those weapons are, right? And they break down into three things. They call them the three Ds: the diversions, the disruptions, and the devastators. So like some weapons are just meant to divert your resources, supplies. Some weapons are meant to disrupt your responses and to disrupt your economy and whatever. And some are meant to fucking devastate. Like
Hmm.
if you look at COVID-19,
Hmm.
that came out of the Wuhan lab in China, right? And the only reason they were working on that with gain of function research was because it was a fucking bioweapon. They were trying to figure out how to use it and how to contain it should it ever be used, and it got out of the lab, right?
Hmm.
Now, for everything COVID did it devastate? No, it didn't devastate. It wasn't 100% lethal. It wasn't going to kill, a whole city, but it was meant to disrupt. That's a disruptor. That just disrupts your economy. It disrupts your flow of goods and assets, and it disrupts your way of life. That's what it
Hmm.
does.
Hmm.
Um, a devastator is something that if it's dropped on your city, everyone dies, right? That's a nuke. It's if
Yeah.
it blows up in a subway, everyone dies. That's VX or sarin gas. Those fucking things just got put in the hands of people who love to use them against us in Israel.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like we have to start understanding and being prepared. Like you at this stage of the game in this country, like if you're not ready for China to attack us, like, and I'm not saying go fight a war, but if you're not ready and you're not looking for that in the next 5 to 15, 20 years, they're going to. They have no choice. They have to. You can't have two world powers competing for the same market. It's just not, you can't.
Mhm.
So they're either going to do it economically or they're going to do it infrastructurally, and they're coming for us. At the same time, we have terrorists that want nothing more than to get rid of the way of life we have because it's the life we have. I mean, we're pissing in clean water while they're drinking, shit water. So
Yeah.
they don't like us. So you have to have a plan and start. If you don't know like any of these skills, like by no means am I an expert enough to frickin' throw all this out there, but buy a book, do something, start preparing yourself for at least the bare minimum. You know what I mean? At least the bare minimum. If I didn't have, like I just said, two sources of heat a couple weeks ago, um, and I wasn't prepared to handle that kind of a situation, I would have had a house that all the pipes burst, all, like
Hmm.
you have to be able to do those things. And even then, I learned something that I had to rely on electricity because I had to have a space heater in my basement. So uh now we're putting in a wood stove in our basement. So
Yeah.
you have to do those things.
Hmm.
Um and I know not everybody can afford that and not everybody can do those things, but if you can't afford that, you can't do that, you have to have a plan to get somewhere where that is uh something you can do. You know what I mean? Something somewhere you can go where you can have that. I can't stress that enough, man. Like it's just the way our country's going and how crazy things are getting. I look at Trump as like, hey man, you're going to be a giant savior, hopefully for this nation. But
Hmm.
in the same token, Trump is a giant threat because they don't want him there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They do not. Nobody wants him there. I know, like people are going to say Putin wants him there, and everyone else that's a dictator wants him there because he's a tyrant, he's a fascist, blah blah blah. No, they don't. They don't want him there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well, Putin actually might, and not for the reasons that people think. Oh man, Nancy Pelosi is hospitalized overseas. Uh, okay, sorry. Looks like she was just injured. I don't know.
oh boy. She probably got
Probably
hammered and
fell. She
fell. Yeah.
probably fell. Yeah.
Yeah, she's always, her liver's a pickle, so I'm sure she
Hmm.
got hammered and
Well,
fell
you
down.
can tell.
Hmm.
Uh, um, so where I was going with the Putin wanting Trump is did they see the same they see the same corruption that's happening
Hmm.
from the globalists, right?
Right.
For whatever reason, for whatever side you're on,
Hmm.
you're both against that. You may not agree on anything else, but you
Right.
agree that the globalists have to stop.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Putin's whole thing is he wants his own sovereignty. He didn't want NATO encroaching
Correct.
on his shores because
Yeah.
the only thing he has to fight to keep his own sovereignty from the globalists is the threat of assured mutual destruction.
Hmm.
It's of a nuclear attack, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why he's been saying it for the last 2 months. You keep fucking with me, you keep pushing, and I'm going to drop a nuke on your ass.
But being able to have Trump in office to push from our end
Correct.
at the same
They
time,
they will
that's
ally
what
on
I
that
mean by
one
he
principle.
probably does want him in
I
office, and
and
that's
he
it.
does
Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
He doesn't want Trump in because he thinks Trump's going to be his buddy. He wants
He's
Trump
not
in because it's an ally in this fight against
right.
globalism, and it will return sovereignty to the nations that want to be sovereign.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
100%, 100%. And by no means is Putin a great person in this, but I honestly believe in this Ukrainian war, this Ukrainian conflict.
Hmm.
He's not the fucking, Hitler that everybody's making him out to be.
Right.
Um, he had reason to do what he did. He attacked 13 chemical weapons and biological weapons facilities that the United States had in Ukraine that Marco Rubio exposed.
Yeah, and
Marco Rubio came out and
Mhm.
admitted, yes, there are freaking biological
in
labs here
in a committee hearing.
in a committee hearing and said, we're doing a disservice if we lie about it. Tell
Mhm.
the truth. They're freaking medical labs, which is bullshit. We know they're
Yeah.
not medical labs.
Yep.
You don't have a medical lab in the most corrupt fucking country on the planet.
Well, you do
Next to
if
fucking
you're doing
Somalia.
Fauci tests on people.
100%, 100%, right? Um, but Putin's like, you know what? I'm gonna call this a special operation. He went into Crimea and fought the Azov battalion, which he was calling Nazis, which, oh, guess what? They're fucking Nazis. They're
Yeah.
not fake. They're not fake Nazis. They're fucking real Nazis.
Hmm.
They want the Fourth fucking Reich. They've said it over and over again. You can find articles going back from liberal outlets talking about the Azov Brigade Battalion that are calling them Nazis from 2013-14 when Obama was in office.
Hmm.
Um, and so he said, I'm going to get rid of the Nazis in Ukraine. I'm going to attack these facilities. And that's what he did. Uh, he has sucked ever since then. Their plans suck. Their military's ass. They're not great at what they're doing because of the levels of corruption they have in their own country. But they have tech. They have a lot of weaponry they can use. And it just so happens that the majority of the budget they've spent on weaponry is weapons that can attack long distances. Because they know what their strengths and weaknesses are. They haven't won a fucking war since fucking World War II.
Hmm.
They haven't, been able to fight that. They got their asses kicked in Afghanistan. Um, they're getting they're fighting to a stalemate in Ukraine against a bunch of ragtag fucks and people all over the place. But that's due in large part by the military intervention that we're doing with weapons, right?
Hmm.
So very rightly and smartly, they've put their advanced tech into long range capabilities because that's what stops the West from encroaching on their behalf, encroaching on their sovereignty. And the globalists are encroaching on not only their sovereignty, on ours as well. Biden tried to give the World Health Organization power over us, to the ability to tell us what we are going to do as
Yep.
American
That
citizens in the next pandemic.
yeah, that we would take their
Oh, fuck no. I will not turn over my sovereignty. No American will.
right.
Uh, to what Tedros, whatever his Mohammedan, whatever his name is, you're not going to decide how I live my life, Tedros.
Right.
And Biden, go fuck yourself. That's not going to happen either.
Hmm.
Luckily that got shot down in a fucking hurry,
Yeah.
but they were set to do it because that's the globalist agenda, right? Like, hey, let's have one governance for the entire world, and you know, that's that seems to be their game plan. And you've seen it in action. The Paris Climate Accords were the beginning of it. You know what I mean? Like those you can always tell that things are complete horseshit when the 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 climate accords, the premise of it is we're going to take every Western nation and you will have to adhere to the climate accords. China, you don't have to. Pakistan, you don't have to. India, you don't have to.
Hmm.
The greatest climate deniers on the planet must be those who fucking started the climate accords because three-quarters of the climate or the carbon emissions being put into the atmosphere come out of those countries. And they say you don't have to do anything until 2035 because you're a developing nation, but everybody else, you're fucked now.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so the rich nations have to buy into this and pay billions to your companies that you've invested in to lower air quotes, lower the O2 emissions, but the ones that are putting three-quarters of the emissions into the atmosphere, they don't have
Hmm.
to do anything. Well, of
Hmm.
course not. You're a developing nation. Don't worry about it. But you can see the bullshit that's out there. And they tried this globalist agenda then. And the globalist agenda is this in a nutshell. We're rich. We want to have control over the entire world. You are a peasant. You will have what we give you, and you will like what we give you. You will eat the food we want you to eat. You're going to eat bugs because that's how we can make more money.
Hmm.
Cow farts are bad. We got to get rid of cows, but don't worry, we're
That's
still
true.
going to eat. We're still going to eat steak. Emmanuel Macron is still going to eat steak. Angela Merkel still going to eat steak. Justin Trudeau, that little bitch, is still going to eat steak. You're not. Well, the rest of us are. You
Right.
won't. We will.
Right.
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 But you're gonna have nothing, and you're gonna like it. That's their motto of the globalist agenda. And Putin's like, yeah, I'm not having it. So yes, him and Trump are gonna ally on that regard. And Putin's kind of hoping because I don't think Putin wants the Ukrainian war to continue. I think he wants it to stop. It's bleeding him dry.
Hmm.
But I don't think he can stop until he gets some assurances that NATO's not going to fucking put weapons on his doorstep.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
And it does make sense. And I
Well,
think Trump is going to get in there and stop it.
we've talked about it several times. Like, if Russia were to do that to Mexico,
Right. We
we'd
would
do
be
the same
pissed.
fucking thing.
100%. Mexico would be the 51st state, not Canada. Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though Trump just trolled Trudeau
Canada. He's still doing.
epically.
He's still
I
doing
know.
it.
It's fucking awesome.
They put out a release that called Canada the 51st state.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
That's
just
what I said that.
it's incredible.
Did you see Trudeau's response back
Uh,
claiming that America's, shitting on women's rights because we had a chance to elect a female president and we didn't?
I did not see that part, but I did see something
I
from.
I have the quote from Trudeau that he put on his X account.
All right, do it.
We were supposed to be on a march toward progress, and yet just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president.
He knows that he's not a woman, right? Or did he
Yeah,
change?
yeah,
He might have.
I don't know. Um, it's fucking it blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so here we this is what gets me, and this is the globalists' agenda to a fucking T. Um, Hillary Clinton, globalist agenda. Kamala Harris, globalist agenda.
I don't think
Right?
she had any agenda.
Well, she was controlled. She would have been right. She
What?
had no.
She was
There's
controlled. There was not.
no thought in her.
Yeah.
No thought in any of it other than I'm gonna
He'll-
get to sit here in this
Yeah.
chair
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll make millions
Mhm.
afterwards. I'll just
Mhm.
sign whatever they tell me to sign. That was the Kamala plan, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But again, we all knew that it's the globalist agenda. But the American people are sexist. They're shitting all over women's rights for not voting for the globalist agenda, right? And it's exactly what you can see it. It's so prevalent now. And he's doing it in his own country, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
where he says things like, I love seeing who's the guy that always stands up and goes against him. I can't think of his
Talking about
name.
the Jordan Peterson.
No, it's the guy in their parliament that goes against him all the time
Oh,
and
I don't know.
just owns him. I mean, just
Mhm.
owns him.
Well, it's not
But-
hard.
No, it's not. It's not. Trudeau's a hardcore, leftist, communist. I mean, he's fucking terrible. He's putting his country in the tank and doing everything he can to destroy Canada. But I mean that it's all that globalist agenda, and it's funny. Trump trolled him, so then Trudeau comes back and throws out there that, well, Americans are terrible for voting for Trump because we're anti-women's rights.
Mhm.
Oh, really? Aren't you the guy who's all for fucking trans women competing against women and everything woman category so that the women who truly are having their rights stolen are being stolen by a man? I mean, at this rate, the first female president is going to be a fucking dude. It's going to be a guy. So Canada's first female president or whatever, whoever it is going to be probably some dude wearing a dress. And they'll be like, yeah, look, our first female president. And they don't see the whole ridiculousness behind it. Or they probably do, actually, but they just don't care,
Mm-hmm.
I just, fuck Trudeau. I mean, that guy is such a shit show. But luckily, we're starting to see, I mean, at least some sort of swing, right? I mean, you have like we've been talking about, people are pushing back, whether it's in France or it's in the UK or it's in Germany and Austria. People are starting to push back. Farmers are pushing back, and locals are starting to push back because they don't want this bullshit anymore. And unfortunately for us, the deep state's pushing back against Trump. I mean, did you see that Biden released 10 billion in sanctions relief with Iran? He did that 3 days after Trump was elected. Where does that money go?
That doesn't shock me.
Where does that money go? That money's going to go to Hezbollah. It's going to go to Hamas. So it's going to continue the fight in Israel. It's going to be used against the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so this battle that's taking place, it's not going to go away quickly. You're going to start, it's a war of attrition. It really is. You're going to start to see, I mean, the Christopher Wrays, they're going to resign. He already did, right? He's put his resignation in. It's got a time date on it. He's effectively put in his 2-week notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the war of attrition. These people that don't want to be in this fight anymore, who were controlled, are going to start to go away. And the players that want to stay, the Hillary Clintons and the Bill Clintons and all those people that are afraid of being, targeted by Trump, they're
Mhm.
begging for a pardon right now. They're begging for it so that they can continue to stay in the fight. They don't want to get prosecuted for their crimes, right? So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
It's
so the person I was thinking about with the Canada thing, to just tie that up for a second, uh it was Premier Doug Ford of Ontario said that we will go to the extent of cutting off their energy going down to Michigan, going down to New York State and over to Wisconsin if they fall through on the 20% tariffs. And so I
yeah,
saw if Trump goes through with the 25% tariff,
yeah,
um I saw somebody comment like, you realize that that means you're not going to get that $3.2 billion then, right? Like the US will supply itself.
right. We have plenty of energy
We
to
can
supply
we can
ourselves.
we can yeah, we can get enough.
They also don't realize, which kind of shocks me. If you remember correctly, when it was in the early 2000s, the East Coast entered a blackout and it went all the way up into Canada because they're on our grid, on our East Coast grid.
That's correct.
We can cut you off, Canada. It
Mm-hmm.
goes both ways. We can cut
Mm-hmm.
you off and power ourselves. We have enough facilities. We can divert lines. I mean, we're not, you think we're buying a ton of energy from you. We're not.
Well, I mean, it when you say $3.2 billion, that seems like a lot. However, that was last year and it was 30% less than the year before. So like
Right.
think about that for a second. We bought 30% less in 1 year.
And here's the other thing, Canada, if you really want to play this game, the majority of your grain comes from the United States. Half your fucking country is
Yeah.
in permafrost for, the majority of your year. You don't have a whole lot of farm field there. You play that game, we'll starve you out, we'll freeze you out, and every Canadian that you've stripped guns away from and stripped rights from, they're gonna come out and they're gonna beat your ass out. So you can play that game, but that's a real dangerous game to play. And I don't think they don't have a leg
No,
to stand on. But
they
threats, idle
absolutely
threats,
know that they cannot. It just makes for a good soundbite.
idle threats, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Pierre Paul,
100%.
the guy I was thinking of is Pierre Poilievre. Um, he's the opposing party's voice against Trudeau, and
Okay.
he always just destroys Trudeau. I mean, look it up. There's hundreds of sound bites of him just owning Trudeau.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was just the other day. I saw one. Trudeau was talking about how Canadians are smart enough to understand that Trudeau and his party have put like $3 billion into housing or whatever. And then Polyev stands up and he's like, "You have put $3 billion into housing, but have built 3 houses.
Yeah,
Where's the rest of the money? Give the
yeah.
Canadians the tax breaks they want." Like, and Trudeau just looks like shit compared to this guy. So
Mm-hmm.
Polyev eventually is going to be he's going to replace Trudeau when people finally have enough in Canada with the globalist bullshit. And hopefully they get some of their freedoms back. Because, I mean, there's between Canada and us, there's no difference, right? I mean, there really isn't.
Well,
We're
they'll get their freedoms back when the west side becomes the 51st state and the
right,
east side becomes the 52nd state.
correct. But that's really what it's going to take or they're going to have to, kind of rise up a candidate like a Trump and take back through radical redrafting of legislation. They're going to have to.
Yeah.
But people have to remember they're not they're not a representative republic. They don't have a constitution like we do. They are pretty much British.
Right.
That's how they roll. They have
Yep.
a parliament. That's how they roll. Their system of governance is not like ours. And they'll have to revamp that and break away from that if they want actual freedom. They'll never have it until they get away from it.
They're technically still part of the Commonwealth, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So
100%.
can we just buy them from Britain?
Wouldn't that be something?
Huh?
Wouldn't that be something, huh?
Let's take the money that Doge saves and buy Canada.
We could just purchase Canada.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. The level, not having to fucking worry about crossing a border and having to do all that
Yeah.
bullshit.
There's a lot of great hunting up there.
There is great hunting, great fishing. I am all
Mhm.
for it. Elon, get us the money to buy Canada.
Let's buy Canada.
Canada doesn't even want to be Canada. We'll let them stay
No.
Canada. They can be the 51st state.
No, no,
We'll
no.
get rid of
But you split it up. You make one conservative and one liberal because the east side's going to be liberal.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna handicap yourself with senators.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we'd have to break that up even more probably. But yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Except for the French part. Let's get rid of it. Can we just like build a wall around the French part?
Oh, no, no, no. We can't do that
Why?
because you're never going to get another Marc-Andre Fleury.
Listen, the French Canadians are the worst kind of French and
I
the
don't
worst kind of Canadians.
listen, they're very punchable. I understand this. They're very punchable, but you have I'm going to say it. I know you're not going to like it. Brad Marchand,
Yeah.
a
I'm
great
over it.
hockey player.
Yeah, but
I
douche.
want to punch him. I want to punch
Yes.
him,
Yes.
but he's a great hockey player. You have Marc-Andre Fleury. He's probably
The flower. Yeah, I get it.
you can't punch Marc-Andre Fleury.
Let's
Even
make
if
him
he
the
gets it.
first governor.
Oh, I am all for that.
Yeah.
I am all for everybody loves Fleury. How
Yeah.
could you not?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of good hockey players that come out of that side. You can't I don't want to wall them off. Um,
Fine.
I was gonna go into the pardons because
Yeah, we gotta do pardons. We got other stuff too.
I mean there's so much.
I went
So
down for like
much.
4 days and it felt like we haven't podcasted for a year.
I know. I know. Oh yeah, let's talk about the pardons.
Yeah, pardons. Hunter.
I'm a, Hunter Biden, right? I mean, I get it from being a
Look,
father. If I
e-
had to,
everyone knew
yep,
that he was absolutely going to get a pardon. If you didn't know because Biden said he wasn't going to, you were fooling yourself.
you were stupid, right? Like, and I get it. As a father, if one of my kids fell into a situation where they were going to go to prison and I had the power to pardon them, I wasn't going to be elected again, right? I'd pardon my kid too. I mean, the guy's got like, maybe like 25 days of life left in his body. If you've seen some of the recent pictures of this guy, I mean, he looks like he's Jimmy Carter almost already. So,
For real.
uh, um, yeah, I would have done the same thing. I don't blame him for pardoning his child. I don't.
Mhm.
Um, I think any loving parent would do that. And I think the media is spot on when they say that. Yeah, whatever. Ethically, it's fucking horrible. I honestly think Trump would have come in and pardoned Hunter Biden anyway.
Well, he said he was going to.
I think he would have. I don't think he would have pardoned Joe because I think that is it needs to be, you can't be an American politician and be for sale, so I think Biden never would have went to prison. He never would have seen a day of prison. They would have stayed his sentence and he would have died an old man at home anyway. Like Trump is probably planning on letting it happen. Um, but you need to frickin' tar and feather the reputation of the man. You need to tar and feather the reputation of those who are part of it. But I think he would have pardoned Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden no longer would have. Let's be honest, the guy's a crackhead. As soon as Daddy's gone and there's no more grifting, and he's been the whole name has been tar and feathered. Hunter Biden's gonna devolve into a fucking degenerate and a crackhead anyway, and he'll be in prison for fucking crimes he commits 10 years from now. So it's not gonna matter.
Yeah, once dad's gone, he's
Mhm.
gonna fall off the deep. He'll probably be dead soon.
Yep. So it's not gonna matter, right? Um, but the ethics behind it is ridiculous. He said he wasn't going to. Everyone knew he was. And unless of course, you're a leftist and you support Biden and that whole bullshit, everyone's like, oh, he's above that. No one's above the law. He even sees this. And the rest of us sane individuals on this planet were like, of course he's going to fucking pardon his kid. Don't be dumb. Of course he is.
Yeah.
But now what gets me is like, Bill Clinton was on CNN and having a conversation about Hillary being preemptively pardoned just in case she committed any crimes, which of course she fucking committed crimes. Everyone
I
knows it.
I love that. I love that. Just in case she committed crimes. Like just tell us.
Right. Just
Right?
tell us without telling us, right?
Yeah,
Of course.
for sure.
And everybody who's asking and seeking a preemptive pardon, Pelosi, Schiff, Schumer, Wasserman, Schultz, Cheney,
Mm-hmm.
all these Kinzinger, whatever his name is, Jack
Well,
Smith.
all the J6 people that destroyed evidence. That's a
Right.
crime.
That's a crime. Bragg, Letitia James, all these other people that have gone after and used lawfare, and these judges too that have committed crimes in the process, obstructing the process. they're all asking for preemptive pardons.
Mm-hmm.
And the media is like, you should preemptively pardon all these people
Mm-hmm.
because you can, apparently. We looked that up yesterday and we were going back and forth. Like, no one's
Well,
ever done it.
yeah,
No one's done it,
I'm
right?
not
But
sure that you can. It hasn't been decided, I guess.
it's right. Well, no one's pushed the issue one way. Well, they have done it in the past, right? Nixon was pardoned
Yeah,
before he was indicted and charged,
right.
but it hasn't been taken before the courts because
Yeah, it was never challenged.
there's no standing. So, and here's what you're saying as a media, right? All these people committed federal crimes because that's what a pardon from the president covers. It doesn't cover state crimes. That's got to come from a governor, right? Only a governor can convict for
Correct.
state
That
crimes.
is correct. It's only federal crimes.
So you're saying that you're worried that all these people have committed federal crimes? I mean, that's what they're saying effectively, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
and they're asking for these preemptive pardons, and it's never been done. I mean, it's been done like with Uno, with a person, right? Because yesterday we talked about in text, I thought George Bush pardoned Cheney and Rumsfeld and all those guys, but he never did.
Right.
There was talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
but he
Well,
never did.
so that was a big rift with them. That's with Cheney and Bush because Cheney wanted him to pardon everyone and he wouldn't do it.
Well, but here's the other thing, and I didn't look this up. I meant to look it up yesterday. Doesn't the incoming president then pardon the outgoing and whoever? I'm pretty sure I've heard before
No.
that
So
that it's like a courtesy.
no, they don't ever get pardoned. The presidents don't get pardoned because they have the presidential immunity.
Yeah, but his staff and everybody else.
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
So it's never been done before then. It's
Yeah.
never
Correct.
This would
The
be a
the
first.
only person was Nixon.
right.
And that was no one was he
And that seemed like a just go the fuck away. We don't want to do this to rip our country apart. Step the fuck down.
well there's a
You're
lot
done.
more there's a lot more conspiracy stuff into that Nixon thing.
Oh, for sure.
Like
For sure. Like he was forced out. Like it was
he was set up,
Yeah.
it was completely set up by the CIA.
Right. There's a lot of that in there. And you know what? Like at this stage of the game, can you
No,
see
it makes sense.
It
Like
does.
before, like 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, okay, whatever.
right. Now
Now
you're
it's like, yeah, I can
I
see
can
them
see it.
doing that.
I can see
Yep,
it, right?
Yep.
And so here we sit. I mean, and Biden might be dumb enough to preemptively pardon or try to preemptively pardon all these. We may see like a massive case before the federal courts.
Yeah, it'll go right to the Supreme Court, I
It
think.
has to because
Yeah.
it's a federal issue, right?
Well, here's
So-
the other thing. And remember, I called this out. I said this. I honestly, of all that, I'm not worried about that part of it. I think he's going to do a mass amnesty.
For illegal immigrants.
Yes. And I
Oh,
said
boy.
that right after the election. He
Yeah, you
still
did.
has 2 months.
You did. You said before J20th, you think he'll do amnesty for all of them.
Yes.
So that's the only way that they have a chance in the next election
Yeah.
to regain control based
Mhm.
off of what they have happening now.
Correct.
And I mean, that makes sense now even more. I mean, you saw it in advance. You were kind of ahead of the curve, the power curve. But I mean, if you put into perspective, how many governors, how many mayors are coming out and saying, we're not going to fucking let you deport anybody. And Holman's like, fine, I'll arrest you.
Yeah.
You're breaking the law.
You want to go to jail for it, and I want to put you to jail for it.
Right. And he will. That
Mhm.
motherfucker's not playing around. Thank
Yep.
God.
Yep.
But I think you're right. Now it makes a lot of sense that could come down the pipe. I hope not. I hope he doesn't do that. But he may absolutely try to get
Here's the other
mass
thing.
amnesty.
Here's the other thing to think about. Who's doing it? And can you argue that he didn't do it because he wasn't there?
Cognitively there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree that there's definitely an argument there.
So
I mean,
who did it?
yeah, Obama. I mean, let's be honest, this whole 4 years under Biden has been a third Obama term anyway. And Kamala Harris is going to be a fourth Obama term. Obama's the only president to leave the White House and
Yeah, but
have
who's
residence in Washington.
who's running Obama?
Yeah, I mean it's who's the handler of Obama, the deep
Yeah.
state, obviously. And
Yeah,
we
but
don't know.
like Soros or what?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a conglomerate, right? Listen, I think you have three different sections, and this is getting into the woods. This is getting into the weeds here of conspiracy. But you have the Bilderberg Organization, which is the top 1% of the world's elite that get together every year and talk about how they're going to control the world. And they say they're doing it for the benefit of everyone else, but it's not. It's for the benefit of their bank accounts. You have the Davos Group, which is Klaus Schwab and the boys, right? That's the World Economic Forum. They're the other side of the Bilderberg groups. So you have like the Soroses and the billionaires like that are parts of both groups, right? And then you have the third entity of that, and that's the rest of the world powers that don't fall into the controllable. That's, your rich Chinese folks and all that are part of the CCP and then the intelligence communities. And I think that makes up the majority of your deep state apparatus. I think it's the world elites that are pulling the strings, and I think they buy candidates. We know they buy candidates. It's not I think anymore. We know they buy fucking candidates. And it's not a coincidence that the globalist agenda matches with the UN agenda, which matches with the NATO push, which matches with what every one of these fucking people in the European Union are saying in sound bites, which matched with what Trudeau was saying, which matched with what Biden was saying, which matched with what all the freaking people that are part of this Davos and Bilderberg group, which was, hey, we need to build back better, right? That's who's pulling the strings. I think Obama is just the intellect and the brain power to carry out their agenda. I mean, I don't think that's conspiracy anymore at this point. You know what I mean? Like, how many coincidences do you have to see before it's not a coincidence anymore? You know what I mean? Like, they've told us themselves in their meetings, in their Tedros talks, and in all these other things. They've said it themselves, right? They've talked about their plans for the world. They've talked about limiting population. They've talked about putting things in place. You're starting to see nations like Saudi Arabia build things like the fucking line that we've talked about, right? Where they're going to pack an entire population into a 1 mile wide by like 5 miles tall. I don't know, superstructure. I don't even know what you call it. It's like what, 35 miles long or whatever. And they're talking about packing people in there, right? And having it be sustainable and powered by freaking solar and blah, 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 blah. Like, you're already seeing countries start to do that. We know that Lahaina in Hawaii has been kind of claimed through eminent domain to be the world's first smart city, even though the residents weren't allowed to have the land back because the land was poisoned from stuff within the fire, but somehow the country can take it, or the state can take it and make it the world's first smart city. I don't understand how poison only works if it's going to be in the hands of people that own their property and not when it's a state that owns it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, don't worry about that poison. We just told you you can't have your land. It's poisonous if you're on it, but it's not poisonous when we start to build on it. You know what I mean? I mean, we start to see all this globalist bullshit all over the place, and it's no longer a conspiracy theory. It can't be. If you're not seeing it and you're not awake enough to see it, you're just, unfortunately, you're falling into that group that's still it's being controlled by the left and the deep state and like the CIA and those entities. You're just not able to see through the bullshit. You're not able to see the grift.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of Americans are seeing the grift, right? Like, if Biden goes ahead, and we talked about this last night, if he pardons these people preemptively and somehow it works for it, somehow it works and they get away with it, you're leaving no means anymore for the average American to seek justice for people that deserve to be brought to justice on the elite scales, other than to do it themselves. And that's not America, right?
Yeah.
That's not America. The scales of justice. I mean, when you look at the symbol of our justice system, it's a blindfolded woman holding scales with a sword. It's equal. It's equal justice, and justice is blind, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
matter who you are. It's supposed to be equal.
Yeah.
And if you do that, if you get a preemptive pardon for all these people who've committed federal crimes, that's why you're pardoning them preemptively, then there is no justice anymore. The American people do have to take it into their own hands. And then you've got something far worse on your hands. You've got another New York where a CEO gets gunned down by some kid who sees a system that's corrupt and that's responsible for a lot of wrong. And that's the insurance system, pharma, big tech. Um, there's a lot of wrong in those systems. There's a
Hmm.
lot of bad that they're doing, right? I'm not going to say what this kid did by gunning down that guy from Minnesota, the CEO of help me out here,
United
United
U-
Health.
United Health Group.
He gunned him down, right? In early morning hours in New York. We've all seen it, and I'll talk about that in a minute because I had numerous people who were like, "Oh, it was a professional hit," and I was like, "Bro, that was the most unprofessional hit I've ever seen." If that's the case, like, okay, whatever. But uh, it is because like this kid thinks. I mean, he's not wrong. These people make billions of dollars off denying claims because that's what they do. They deny first to see if you'll go away, and they make it hard. They don't want you to use your benefit. They want to make the money, right? They're billions and billions of dollars, and this guy as a CEO makes a ton of money from that system. He's not the system. He's the face of the system, but this kid goes and guns him down. And I'm not saying that that's right, but it's the truth that this is happening. It's these things are happening. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I have dental insurance. You've got the same dental insurance, and the company that we have, the insurance group we have our insurance from is fucking awful.
All right. Soapbox.
Yeah, hit it. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous.
I have twins.
Hmm.
They go to the dentist on the same day.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I love this
And
story.
and every fucking year for 4 years, they go get their teeth cleaned. And the first time of the year, right? So they go twice a year. The first one is typically in, I don't know, March, February, March, somewhere in there. And one of them, their claim will get paid. The other one, their claim gets denied because my wife and I both carry dental insurance.
Yep.
And we get a letter that says we are committing insurance fraud because they are not the primary. Now, insurance companies use a what they call the birthday rule,
Mhm.
right? So my insurance is my primary and Brenda's insurance is her primary.
Yep.
Okay. For the girls, it goes off of what parent's birthday is first in the year, comes
Right.
first.
Yep.
That would be mine. For 42 fucking years, I've had the same birthday. And Brenda has had the same fucking birthday.
It hasn't changed.
It has not.
Oh, that's
It
crazy.
hasn't. It hasn't. And every year they pay one of the girls and they deny one of the girls because
Yeah.
it's fraud, because they're not the primary.
And not just fraud, they threaten you with a letter, didn't they?
Yes, I get letters. I get multiple letters saying that I'm committing fraud.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
the most irritating and ridiculous thing I have ever been a part of. Every year,
Yep.
I know it's coming. My dentist gets letters.
Yeah.
They know it's coming.
Yep.
And there is literally nothing you can do about it.
I would love to share. Uh, uh, so we have something going on right now on my wife's behalf.
Okay.
Like you, we double dip and we have coverage through her and coverage through us. Now
Yes.
the coverage through her was through our old coverage, which was Delta
Yes,
Dental,
that's my wife's.
and Delta is fantastic.
They're great.
And we now have coverage through, I'm gonna say it. I don't give a
Yeah,
fuck.
fuck them.
Through Cigna,
Cigna is a garbage fucking company.
and Cigna is fucking awful, right? So my wife just went to the dentist. She had to get some work done. Um, and it should pay. It comes out of hers first, right? Hers is
Correct.
primary,
For
and
her,
then
yeah.
it comes off of ours.
Mm-hmm.
We just got a letter in the mail saying from the dentist saying, hey, there's this payment that needs to be made. Your insurance didn't cover it. And I look at it and I was like, oh, fuck no. No, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
Submit that shit again. So we call the dentist and they're like, yeah, we're having trouble with him. Don't worry about that. We're just going to keep submitting it. Our dentist on our behalf sent a
Mm-hmm.
letter to Cigna that says, we can see that you have $500 left of coverage that you are obligated to cover by the end of the year, and you are denying coverage because you want to make it through to the next fiscal year without having to pay that $500, and you're trying to make your client pay out of pocket. We can see that that's what you're trying to do, and we are going to report you.
Mm-hmm.
So my dentist is now fighting with my insurance
Yeah.
company,
Same.
saying that they are being fraudulent.
Yes. Same.
And it's funny because the insurance company will send us a letter because we've gotten a letter as well saying we are being fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
You dirty fucking motherfuckers. And then,
Yeah.
and honestly, like when you see the shit, and we're not the only ones
No.
in our work alone,
Yeah.
work alone,
Yeah.
we know probably over a dozen people who have had issues with Cigna. And when this kid shot this CEO, a graphic came up on TV and it showed the top 3 companies that had denied more claims than anybody else, and it was United Health was number 1.
Yep.
It was Medica was number 2,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Cigna, which was number 3.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I have had zero problems with Medica denying claims.
No, we have the premium package from Medica.
Yep, correct.
Like
So,
it's
I mean,
it's
it's
the
the-
reason we do what we do with the hours that we work.
and continue to, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
it's got to be there. The reason we have this package is the potential of harm that can come to us, right?
Correct. Yes.
And so that's where this package came from. And they try to take it from us every chance they get.
Every time the union goes to negotiate.
Right. They try to take it from us because, and we're not giving it up. I don't want to have to pay for a gunshot wound, God forbid, on my
Mhm.
own.
Yeah.
And be,
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
denied coverage.
Be denied.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe they'll let us go to Cigna.
right. Yeah. That'll
Fuck
be
you.
great.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Which is unbelievable, right? And then I just saw another thing, and this fucking blows my mind as well. Blue Cross Blue Shield is now trying to dictate to doctors how much anesthesia a person can get,
Yeah. How long they can be under
how
anesthesia.
long they can be under anesthesia
Mhm.
for.
Mhm.
Oh, that's gonna work.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
tell the fucking doctor, no,
You
no,
know,
cut that guy off. Wake him
Wake
up.
up. Yeah.
Wake
Fuck
up.
off.
You're in a
Mhm.
heart surgery.
They
Wake
backed
that
down.
guy
They
up.
backed down from that pretty quick.
They did, but they were trying to because they don't want to pay out more money, right? And that's the problem.
Look at that's how all this shit works, right? Like with the
Yes.
trans stuff, you
Yes.
start, you just bring it up, and then you back down, and then you
Right.
bring it back up.
And then you keep going
Yes,
until eventually
keep
you gain
pushing.
control.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a real problem here that is
Yes.
being identified. And I'm not saying what this kid did was right.
No.
I'm not saying this kid is some kind of Robin Hood or a hero. But I am going to say that that CEO probably made millions of dollars. I know he was being investigated for insider trading.
Mm-hmm.
I know that
Was he?
yes,
Because I
Him
heard
and-
that.
him and
I heard-
one other man.
I heard it was people on the board, but then I'd never heard that they weren't sure if it was him.
Him and another
Okay,
individual both
There-
being investigated for liquidating their shares.
Okay. It sounded like it was more than just 2, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's more.
Okay,
But
yeah, okay,
those two are
okay.
the 2 that liquidated most of the shares.
Got it.
So you're not, if you're a CEO of any company,
Mhm.
you don't make it there by being a kind, compassionate, understanding fella. You know what I mean?
Listen, especially in insurance.
Right. You make it there because you're as cutthroat as they are. So I'm not saying go ahead and target these CEOs and go after them. That's not the American way, right? It's just not. We have to fix these systems because they're corrupt. And again, it goes into the elitist mindset of, hey, it's a grift. I'm going to make money. I'm going to pay you to make me money by fucking over everybody else. Because that's what the elitists do. And that's the globalist agenda in a nutshell is fuck over the peasants so that we can make more money. That's what's happened for centuries now. But I'm not saying that this kid did something right, but I'm saying, I can kind of understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not pulling for this kid. He needs to pay his penance for what he did. But I am saying this, like, if I was ever in a situation where a CEO and a company took from me something that I thought was warranted that kind of a response, I could see it.
This
You
guy
know what I
had
mean?
like major back surgery, right?
Yeah, he had a bunch of shit, and
Yeah.
I think they pushed his button, and I think he's crazy enough to go do it, and he did it. And I'll tell you
Well,
what,
when you're living with chronic pain,
yeah, yep,
and I'm not saying that that's what that is, but typically with the major back surgery that he had,
yep.
that's what you're living with.
And I think his button got pushed, and he
Mhm.
fucking took matters into his own hands. He's like, I'm gonna make a point of all of this, and he did. He made a point. Not so much did he just make a point, but do you know how many CEOs immediately in big corporations that knew that they too were fucking people over, that were afraid that they were next, hired contract security?
Mhm.
It exploded 3,000% in fucking a week. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
You as a CEO know you're a shitty enough person, that you're running a shitty enough company that's fucking over average people enough that you're like, oh fuck, I got to get myself protection. And they
Mhm.
did. It's fucking ridiculous.
Dude,
It's
it's
ridiculous.
well, so there was a lady that was just arraigned I don't know where. It was Polk County, but some lady was just arraigned for making a threat on a call with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Like,
I don't doubt it.
yeah.
I don't doubt it. It's so frustrating. You call to talk to somebody and they just shut you down, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry, we're denying that claim." They
Hmm.
don't give you any backstory. They lay it at your feet like it's your fault, and it leaves you feeling like you have no other alternative than to get, loud and scream at them because they're not fucking listening. They don't care. And um in some of these instances, they're denying the first claim just because they can. And if you submit it 3 or 4 more times and petition it 3 or 4 more times, maybe eventually they'll cover it, but they know that there's a percentage that won't, submit it again. You know what I mean? There's a percentage that'll give up right away and just be beaten, and then they make money off that. And
Hmm.
there's a percentage the second time, the percentage goes up, right? That'll be defeated and beaten. And then finally down the line, they're like, all right, this guy's not going away. And he's right. We got to claim it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but they do that. They'll deny the claim several times first before they fucking pay the claim. Um, Aflac has done that to me. So, but I keep submitting, and eventually they're like, all right, motherfucker, here's your fucking money.
Hmm.
And that's what I pay for the insurance for.
Hmm.
You offered that to me as a way of having that ability, and then you just thought I was dumb enough not to use it, and now I use it, and then you're like, no, 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 we're not paying it. And I'm like, no, no, yeah, you are. No, we're not paying it. I'm gonna submit that again and say, yes, you are. No, we're not paying it. I'm sorry, you don't have this form. Fuck it, tell me the form I don't have. I'll go find the form. And then they're like, all right, well, fuck, I can't. All right, here's your money. Here's your money. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do that, right? They try to help
That's how they
deny you
make
to
their
go away.
money.
That is how they make their money, being shitty people. Yeah. So let's talk about the shooter, because like right away I had people texting me and being like, it's a professional hit. It was a hand cycled pistol.
So
And I was like,
there was a lot of misinformation out there right away.
well, the
Um,
video was the biggest misinformation.
mhm.
People, I saw that video, and uh there's two options that could have taken place in that video right off the bat. It could have been a hand cycle 22 that was suppressed, and it was a professional hit, but I don't know why it would be a professional hit if you hit the guy on camera. That's dumb.
Yep.
Um, or to me, what it looked like right off the bat, and now we know what it was, but right off the bat, to me, it looked like it was a guy using a very small pistol, like a Beretta Tomcat, a small platform with subsonic rounds, which means they're subsonic, which means they perform at a less capacity, right?
Yep. Yep.
Keeping it underneath that supersonic range to keep the sound down, because you're using a suppressor, so you only want to have the sound being heard as a mild report from the weapon itself, and then
Hmm.
you hear the slide of the weapon. That's what you're hearing. And if you take a short barrel and a long suppressor, you can undergas your weapon, and then you have cycling problems where it doesn't cycle.
Hmm.
So you're not ejecting that brass.
Yeah.
And immediately, when the first thing I noticed immediately when he stepped out was the size of the weapon platform with the can on that weapon platform, the small frame of the pistol, and then it didn't cycle, right? But what caught my eye immediately was he immediately went into an immediate action drill, an out of action drill. He knew that the pistol was out of action and went into it. So a lot of people are like, oh, he's really well trained. He's professional. He did that so quick. The New York police came out and said that he did that so quick. Nope, he didn't. He did. He did an immediate action drill quick, but he didn't do an immediate action drill. He didn't tap. He didn't hit
Yeah.
the bottom of the
He
magazine.
just hit the slide.
He just hit the slide. And if you watch how he pulled the slide, he pulled it with two fingers, not with a whole purchase of a hand over the top, which you don't ever pull with two fingers because your freaking fingers can slide off the weapon if it's cold, if it's freaking wet, if it's whatever. It's always a purchase of a whole hand. So he wasn't professional. And when he did it the first time, he didn't do it far enough and he pulled the trigger and he didn't have any trigger because he didn't eject the casing out. So he had to do it again to get that second shot off. Right off the bat, I was like, you are not a professional, which led me to believe that this guy had this weapon somehow. He used it previously and he knew it was going to malfunction. A
Yeah.
professional does not use that weapon then.
Yeah.
Because he immediately went to that out of action drill,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't a professional out of action drill. He didn't tap rack ready. He didn't do that. He didn't tap the bottom of the magazine to make sure a round's seated. He didn't eject the spent shell casing and reload a second casing into that weapon and then shoot again. He just went right to the slide with two fingers. And it wasn't professional. Then people were still on the it's a professional. He's still a professional. Look, he did that. He had a bike staged. He drove off into Central Park
Mm-hmm.
and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that part good. Like you had a plan to escape the
Yeah,
area.
it just means he thought it out.
He thought it out. That doesn't mean you're a professional,
Mhm.
right? Any idiot can think out a plan, but a
Mhm.
professional gets away with it. A professional never would have shot that guy on camera. There would have been no leads outside of you putting fucking engravings on your shell casings, which a professional would never do unless they were setting somebody else up, right?
Correct.
And here's the other thing. He jumps out and he kills the guy in that first shot, but then he puts one or two more rounds into the guy.
Yeah.
He shot him in the back and in the calf.
Mhm.
Professional's not going to shoot you in the calf. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? So, and then he runs off and gets away into Central Park, right? Also, they were able to follow that guy to Central Park, follow him out. Then they got video footage of him at a coffee shop taking his mask down to impress a girl.
Yeah.
A professional's not going to do that. You have a ready-made way to keep your face covered since COVID, which is that hospital mask. A professional's going to stay in that mask the entire time he's in New York because it's the most surveilled state on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's never going to fucking come out of that mask ever. And he's not going to put himself in a hostel with two other people. It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
And people were still like, oh, it was a professional assassin. No, motherfucker, this was not a professional assassin. This was the most unprofessional assassin that has ever been. But he did a good job. He assassinated the guy and got away immediately.
Yeah.
But we talked about it. He's not going to get away for long. He's going to get caught. He fucking put his face out there looking like a pretty boy. You're going to get fucking caught.
Mhm.
And absolutely, finally, he got caught. And as soon as that McDonald's picture of what the guy looked like came back, I was like, oh, yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
No.
That's him. And it's funny to me, like everyone's
It's like
well, he was-
people really wanted this to be a real hit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the Hollywood thought process took over,
Yep.
and honestly, where it comes from is the fact that we know these kinds of things are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that Seth Rich, the Democratic operative who was leaking to Julian Assange, was killed in a professional hit.
Yeah.
We know that the fucking Clintons have a body list going fucking back to forever.
Whoa. They all got suicided.
Yes, in the back twice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Shot himself in the back of the head twice.
Yeah.
Suicide. We know that these things are taking place, right? And at some stage, you're like, man, this smells weird.
Mm-hmm.
There's people being investigated for insider trading. This guy's a part of it. Maybe he rolled over. Too many coincidences. I don't buy it. But sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. And it was that this kid has a fucking beef. He's probably got some agenda He fucking etched things on the shell casings.
Yeah.
So you either have one of two things. It's a professional framing somebody, or it's a crazy kid who wants to fucking make his name for himself, who's probably in debt up to his eyeballs and is pissed off about it. Which one's this more simple answer?
Yeah.
Right. And
It
that's
was a
what
professional.
and that's what ended up being the truth, right? Is this
Yeah.
kid fucking stepped out, shot a guy in the back, sucked at what he did, 3D printed his own weapon and his own suppressor, and it oddly enough, it didn't function.
Yeah.
Weird. He had to keep hand cycling it to get it to
Mhm.
function, and then he ran off. And the most professional thing about this kid so far, since he's a professional assassin, was he kept the ID he used in the fucking hostel and to rent the e-bike and to travel on the fucking bus, and he kept the pistol on him. He
Mhm.
kept all that shit on him when he got caught at McDonald's.
Mhm.
Hey, pro tip, brother. You 3D printed that thing. Fucking melt it.
Yeah.
Melt it.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
The ID can be melted too. And maybe they have your face, but they don't have the gun, they don't have anything else. And the angles on your face, you could have been like, hey, there's a lot of people that look. I have two friends myself that I was like, hey, I don't know, this motherfucker, it might have been him. Literally, one of my buddies, like, it is a spitting image of him. I
Right.
sent him a text message and I was like, hey, did you travel to New York? And he goes, it wasn't me, bro. His wife asked him the same thing. Is something I need to know about? Obviously, he didn't, but I mean, he
Yeah.
looked like him a lot, like that picture with the mask down. And yeah, I mean, pro tip, dude. Next time, get rid of the fucking murder weapon, and get rid of the ID. What
Yeah.
the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
It just tells me he wanted to get caught. He
Yeah.
was planning on doing it again. I got away with it once. I'm
Maybe.
gonna do it again.
Maybe. Yeah.
And yeah, he fucked up. Not a professional hit. Just in case everybody's still thinking it was a professional assassin and this kid's being set up.
Very far from it.
Very far from it. This is not a conspiracy. This was a kid, the kid who did it, and you could see it all over the place. It wasn't professional. The weapon wasn't.
Well, he had
functioning.
all sorts of writings on him about it and all sorts of stuff.
Yep. This kid's got an agenda and he wanted to fucking see it through.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, I understand it. I can understand why you'd be so pissed off that you would do this to a system that is fucking people over on the daily.
Yeah.
But this was not John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is ridiculous. This kid probably saw John Wick and probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But
Thought I could do that.
Yeah, anybody can do that. That looks easy. And the shit on Hollywood usually does look easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The professionals you don't hear about because they don't get caught.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
That's why they're professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Unbelievable how crazy that,
Yeah, that story is crazy. And I don't know. It's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see, I should say, where it goes for the insurance industry, right? Like they walled up United Health. Medica closed their campus.
Mhm.
Like,
yeah, well, I mean,
for a couple days, I think.
I'm not going to say this was a good thing.
No,
but
it's
this
not
is,
at all.
This is one of those things that, hey, you know what? It needed to happen. These motherfuckers, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want any violence to come to anyone, but these motherfuckers need to know that the systems they're operating under are not okay.
Yeah.
What they are doing to people is not okay. The levels of corruption and greed in their companies, not okay. And if they don't, this is one thing that they have to understand. If you don't stop this bullshit, the peasants are getting sick of it. And the peasants at some point are going to go full Marie Antoinette on your ass like this kid just did. And you're going to be hashtag let them eat caked as well, just like other people have in the past. They are going to pull you out of your comfort zone and they're going to rip you out in the street and they're going to shoot your ass. And unfortunately, when there's no other recourse for them to fight you because you have more money than they do, you can drown them in paperwork through lawsuits, and they can't fight you in a legal battle because you have more attorneys and more time and more money on your hands. You can just fuck them over. Unfortunately, the only way for them to fight back is to actually fight back. And if you leave a peasant with no alternative than to put the sword in his hands, guess what the peasant's eventually going to do? He's going to put the fucking sword in his hands.
Yeah.
And it's not just here with health companies and CEOs. That's with governments. We've seen it forever. This has
Mhm.
gone on for millennia, for
Mhm.
since corruption has been around. This has gone on. So, um, if you're a CEO and you're in one of these companies, like, hey man, like maybe you might want to think about a different job. You might want to think about being better or maybe restructuring your company. Like, I get it, you're all about the profit. But if your profit is at the behest of fucking over somebody else, that somebody else has a say in the matter as well. And their
Mhm.
say isn't your say. Your say is I'm untouchable. Their say is I'm gonna touch you. And I hope this kid doesn't spark off a trend.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's what happens. You know what I mean? Like the first school shooters were Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, and look what's
Mhm.
happened since.
Mhm.
This kid could be the first, and I'm betting he will be.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more.
Oh, I think so too.
There's going to be more. So, one of a few things will happen out of
Clear,
that.
clearly they think that too because the security has been.
Yes, 3,000% increase,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And th that's that's the initial reaction that they're going to have because their money can pay for it.
Hmm.
But the next thing they're going to have is they're going to try to get some sort of legislative process to put in place where they're protected and it's seen as like a hate crime to go after them, or it's seen as like a they'll do something crazy like
Yeah.
that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like
You're right.
protect
Hmm.
me because I'm
Hmm.
important. And
Yeah.
they'll want people seen as like a terrorist if they're being gone after. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So like, oh, the CIA now can protect them type thing. So, I mean, that'll be their next like, hey, we are so important. Like, we're as important as the nation. So
Hmm.
it's a crime to come after. I don't know. It's obviously it's a crime to go after them, but they'll want a special class or special protection, that
Of
kind of
course.
thing.
Yeah.
And that'll come next. And maybe not off of this one, but after the next one, for sure they're gonna get together and be like, hey, we need to form some sort of government like protective group
Hmm.
that sees fit to protect us. Fuck the peasants, protect us. And the peasants are gonna end up paying for that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's just going to make the whole thing worse. But yeah, this is going to start a trend, and he's the first. This United Health CEO is the first. I don't think he's going to be the last, and I don't think it's right. But like I said, as long as you're fucking over the peasant's going to fight back the only way they can. They're going to put the sword in their hand.
Yep.
The sword is always mightier than the pen. It
Hmm.
says the other way around. The pen's always mightier than the sword. Oh yeah, but say that to that health, the CEO that's not here anymore. Which
Yep.
was more mighty, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So, uh, yeah, it's got to happen again eventually until the system's unfucked,
Hmm.
and then once balances come back, and then it'll stop, right? But
Yeah, I think so.
hopefully I'm wrong. But I just, if history is anything to judge by, I just don't think that I am wrong. I think there would be more. There was another thing I wanted to. Did you see this freaking uh Patrick Frey out in Los Angeles?
No.
Did you see his tweet about killing Trump? He said in a tweet, if Donald Trump becomes a tyrant, the American people will have to examine the option of dealing with him the way the citizenry deals with tyrants. And then he goes on to talk about, you know, the tree of liberty has to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants and the blood of patriots.
What?
Yeah. Did you not see that?
No.
He's a fucking assistant district attorney in LA.
For like under Gaston?
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
LA or is that San Fran? That's San Fran.
He's LA County's assistant district attorney.
What the hell?
Um, and he was talking about if Trump goes after, uses lawfare to go after his political opponents. Basically, I mean, and this is why stuff like this is dangerous, right? Because there are impressionable people out there who are crazy enough to do stuff. We've seen it now twice with Trump,
Hmm.
right? At least twice that we know of.
Yep.
And we just saw this kid go after a CEO and kill him.
Hmm.
And we know that there was other assassination plots out there for Trump. And we know the media pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And they called Trump Hitler. They called him a Nazi. They called him a tyrant. They called him a dictator. And now you have people within, uh, you know, government organizations like the district attorney's office that are openly saying it on their X accounts. Or sorry, that wasn't on X, it was on that other one.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. I have it written down as BS down here.
Yeah, well, that's fitting.
I thought so too. But it's fucking ridiculous. How many times are they gonna say the shit like this? Like, you
No.
can't say things like this because there are people crazy enough who do believe the shit you're saying, even though it's not true, it's complete horseshit that will do something. Um, you can't do that. Like, you just fucking can't do it. And they can't help themselves. I don't know if it's because they're so fucking crazy themselves or if it's because they do want something to happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or if they're just saying it because they want their 10 minutes of fame, you know? But what the fuck, man? They continue to say shit. That's the latest one I've seen.
That's crazy.
Patrick Frey, Frey. That's how Jacob Fry spells his last name too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I saw that immediately and I was like, hey, I wonder if they're related. Both ridiculous liberals and both saying stupid shit.
Yeah.
Very interesting because when I was reading the story, you sent me the message last night about the Secret Service agent being 5 feet and firing at the guy and missing from the second attempt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, 5 feet.
Yeah, and we had talked about, you kind of went off like, well, yeah. And my whole thing wasn't that he missed. Like, yes, there's that part of it. However, the original story made it sound like he was a ways away.
Miles
Yeah.
away.
Like
He
they had
identified him.
just started walking that
Yeah,
that hole,
right.
because they walked the hole
In advance.
a couple
Yep.
ahead. And so, like, I was just like, 5 feet. How is this just coming out now?
Well, I mean, they do a really good job of compartmentalizing everything,
Yeah.
right? They don't want you to know the failures of the Secret Service. Um, I said this to you last night, like when I worked with them for the Republican convention, uh, it it destroyed my previous belief on what the Secret Service was.
Hmm.
My previous belief of the Secret Service was based off Hollywood,
Hmm.
like they're
Hmm.
all super badass.
Hmm.
And then getting to work with them, I was like, oh my God, you guys are fucking police officers. Like, you're no different.
Yeah.
In fact, I think police officers are probably better suited to do
Probably are, because they deal with it more often.
right. And I was not impressed. I was impressed with some of the protective detail guys that I saw.
Hmm.
I was not impressed with the rank and file, like Advon guys that were there doing whatever. They're just normal people. Um, and I think I've told you that story about one of the guys that was in the control center,
Yeah.
talking about how badass he was, and
Hmm.
he looked like, almost 300 pounds of chewed bubble gum, and I mean, he was a bag of milk, and he was talking about how badass he was, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this guy probably has a lot of experience. And I asked him what his experience was, like what he did prior to being in the Secret Service, and he's like, oh, I was in the Air Force, and I was like, wait a second, because if you're a badass in the Air Force, you're like a TAC-P or a PJ, or you're
Hmm.
one of the special operations guys in the Air Force. The rest of them are not typically badasses. They're good at what they do, but they're not like what I would at that time. My perception of like all Secret Service was
It
they were
was
like,
like Delta. Yeah.
yeah, Navy SEAL, Delta, like that's
Hmm.
because that's what Hollywood tells you, right? You're like
Hmm.
the baddest of the bad.
Hmm.
And I had worked with a lot of badasses at that point, and I was like, you don't seem like a badass to me. Like I'm not catching badass on you
Yeah.
whatsoever. I'm
Yeah.
catching bag of milk all over you. Like,
Hmm.
and then he told me that he just, got out of the Air Force and went to college and then applied for the Secret Service and got a job. Well, the reality is a lot of them are just normal dudes. Like
Hmm.
they're normal people. They're no different than any cop on the street for the most part. And that kind of ruined my image of the Secret Service. Um, because there are some in the Secret Service, absolutely, like we talked about at the Trump thing with the sniper that shot the kid in the face,
Hmm.
like from, as fast as he could. Like there are some guys who are fucking the real deal.
Yeah.
And then there's some guys that they're just the average guy. So shooting somebody from 5 feet away with a pistol to me does not seem like a very difficult thing to do.
No.
But also you have to put in the capacity, like, dude's probably never been engaged before, probably never
Mhm.
had to pull his weapon and handle that situation before. Noticed immediately it was an AK-47 coming through when he finally did recognize what it was. Probably saw a dude sitting back there behind that, and he was probably in the immediate realm of, oh fuck, I'm outgunned
Yeah.
and I got to get the fuck away. And that
Yeah,
was
just
probably,
rattling shots off to
yep,
move.
yep,
Yeah.
that's all it was to me. It was probably trying to break a fire superiority situation
Hmm.
and to get the fuck out of Dodge. He did his job. That gunfire alone communicates itself to everybody else that's a protective agent to get
Hmm.
Trump out of there, which
Hmm.
I'm sure it did, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so he did his job. He protected Trump. And I don't think you need to score hits on the target after that. Plus, the guy had plates hung on the wall or the fence there, right? So I
Hmm.
think this guy pretty much was like, "Oh shit, I got to get out of here,"
Yeah.
and he just engaged. And that's, I don't honestly know that I would be any better in that situation. To be honest, I can see it happening, and I would like to think like I would have taken more time and been like, "I'll just step to the right here and put some rounds on you, and maybe I'll score a kill shot from
What?
5 feet away."
And
But
yeah, you
I don't
don't
know.
know. You don't know what he's seen, right?
Right,
So like
right,
you see him in the barrel.
right.
It's there in the scope.
Yep, you got to get rounds off fast and get the fuck out of
Mhm.
Dodge because you're outgunned there, right? And I think that's probably what he did. I'm
Yeah, he
not
said
gonna.
because originally it came out that he saw the barrel protruding from the fence, and you're like, how the fuck did he see that from that far away? Now it makes sense. And he just
Right.
stumbled across it, and that at that point you're so close, like,
Yeah. And I'm sorry, if you if you've been around AKs and you see that come through the fence, that barrel is very distinct, and you will pick that up.
mhm.
And I'm sure he did, and I'm sure that's what brought him up close. Like
Yeah.
in his mind, though, I'm probably thinking, is this some dumb kid with an airsoft gun, or is this the real deal? And then he gets up and he sees some deranged looking fucking lunatic, and he's probably like,
Hmm.
oh fuck. And then, you know,
Hmm.
that
Yep.
guy probably panics and is doing something, and he panics and
Yeah.
he's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm in serious danger.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he did what he did, and uh he did his job. He got out of there. I'm not gonna shit on the guy for being in that situation.
No, and especially now, the only reason I brought it up was just because of that whole the initial
Yeah,
reporting
we were
was
allowed to think
like,
something completely
oh
different.
yeah, like he was on the
Right.
tee box and it was halfway down the fairway. You
Yeah, and
know,
this
like
guy put great rounds down range to fucking save.
yeah.
No, this was like a guy walking up on it and being like,
Just
"Oh fuck," and then,
yeah, that's exactly what it probably was.
yeah, I could see it. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, uh, I've had the capacity to work with these guys, so as disappointing as it was, I was also very impressed with a lot of them,
Hmm.
and just disappointed with a few of them.
Yeah.
Another funny
Which is
story
probably why
was,
those people get put into the camera room.
sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. But one of the guys that was leading part of the stuff walked up to their uniform division who was manning a checkpoint with like X-rays and
Hmm.
magnetometers and stuff. And I was walking up there with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good day." And I was like, "Oh yeah, why is that?" And he's like, "We're gonna get some action." And I was like, "No shit." And like coming straight from freaking Iraq as a DoD contractor, not knowing any better, right? Action for me is like, holy fuck, we're in it today. Like,
Yeah. Hold
can
on,
I
let me lock and load.
can I get one of them rifles? Like,
Yeah.
but he's like, yeah, we're gonna get fence jumpers. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Action is fence jumpers?
Yeah.
And then he's like, we might even get to see a dog get let loose. And I was like, that's it? Like, we are coming from two totally different worlds, bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but you know, you have to understand too, these guys aren't dealing with a whole lot of shit. They're not the Dan Bonginos of the world who are doing like foreign advons overseas, like
Hmm.
having to deal with actual shit, you know, like landing in hostile fucking areas and
Yeah.
planning this stuff out. This is fucking St. Paul, Minnesota,
Right.
where the most hostile thing they're gonna get is pepper spray, you know,
Hmm.
or eggs or rocks thrown at them.
Hmm.
And you know, that is action for them. They are getting a chance to do their job. And once you break it down into that, yes, it was extremely disappointing for me because they're not the Delta Dan at every level that I thought they were, but they're fucking good at what they do. You know,
Yeah.
that is the reality of it.
Yep.
And I learned I can't let Hollywood decide what shit is for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't
Fair.
just you can't believe it.
Mm.
You have to see it for yourself.
Yep.
I mean, I've that's kind of been my Achilles heel for a long time. The military kind of ruined uh the way I see a lot of things in the government. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I'm sure.
Hollywood told me the FBI was the most upstanding, elite, legit investigative branch on American soil.
Hmm.
Reality taught me that the FBI is fucking corrupt, right?
Hmm.
Hollywood taught me the Secret Service could do no fucking wrong, and if there is a sniper trying to kill any president within a mile, that motherfucker is taken out.
Hmm.
Reality told me they can get to within 147 yards,
Hmm.
and by the grace of God, by divine intervention, really, that
Hmm.
we still have Trump, who is now going to be our 47th president, who hopefully will fix the country, the mess this country is in right now.
Yeah.
Um, and so on and so forth. And I don't mean that to dissuade, like, I'm not trying to shit on the Secret Service. Those dudes are doing an impossible job. And I've said it before, like, the enemy only has to be right once, and they have to be right 100% of the time. Um, and God bless them for doing the job they're doing. Because I mean, how many other professions are you joining a freaking job knowing that if need be, you have to sacrifice your life for the protective detail? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
There is not many jobs out there that have that kind of fucking dedication where you're swearing an oath to give up your life for somebody else. So
Hmm.
God bless them. But yeah, I don't know. It's ruined things for me.
Yeah. That'll do that.
Going back, like I did tell you that I talked to a CEO of a company yesterday, right? I told
Hmm.
you that story.
Yeah.
I want to share that. Like I was blown away. So I just made a purchase, and this is like, to me, there's a stark contrast between this Universal or United Health CEO and this guy that I'm going to talk about. But um, I made a purchase. I bought a set of night vision. I've
Hmm.
been doing a lot of stuff. I'm training with some people and doing some stuff and hanging out with my buddies who are some complete badasses. And I'm sick of using their shit, so I bought my own, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I reach out and I bought a set of night vision goggles, and I don't have a ton of money to break the bank, so I used the deal on this company, usnightvision.com. US Night Vision's the company, and I used there's an internet influencer. He's a YouTuber. His name is Jack Richland, and he runs Black Scout Survival. And in part of the deal, you could get uh, the night vision devices, a helmet, the mount, the whole setup, and for a certain amount of money. And so I bought that setup. Um, Within probably, man, I don't know, 5 hours, I get a phone call, and the caller ID on my phone is US Night Vision. I'm like, oh well, they're probably calling because
Yeah.
my bank, was like, oh, fraud protection, whatever, right? And before I even made the purchase, I called my bank and had them do a 1 day allotment, because that's happened to me in the past where I've tried to buy something that's more than what my fraud protection on my card allows. And so I was like, oh, that's probably what it is. Well, I answer the phone, and this voice on the phone, this guy's got a voice on him that he's just, you just, he's fun. You can tell he's fun. He's got stories.
Yeah.
And he introduces himself to me, and he's like, oh, I'm the CEO of US Night Vision. I'm like, what? And so he starts talking. He's like, you purchased some night vision, and he started talking, and um, he said some things right off the bat that caught my attention. And he basically called 2020, the pandemic, the scamdemic. And I was like, whoa, like right off the bat, like, okay, that's how this is gonna be. Like,
Hmm.
you're a CEO of a company, you're saying, and I almost didn't believe him at first,
Hmm.
but there was something telling me in my head, like, listen to this guy and just be honest with him, talk to him.
Hmm.
And so he asked me a couple questions, and I answered, and We started having a conversation, and he was talking about my night vision, that I ordered the device off the Black Scout Survival, and he asked if I knew Jack. And I said, I don't know him personally. I've seen his videos, like, whatever. And then he started talking about how he met Jack and their friends. And he kind of covered the story about Jack and how Jack came to him early on and asked him for uh like help picking out a device, and what happened, what have you, and he didn't know who Jack was really, and that evolved into him and Jack becoming friends and over time. And I was laughing and I was like, yeah, like I said, he started talking about the country and how the state of the country and how sales for him have gone off the charts, especially with Jack and the Black Scout Survival thing they have on their website. And I was like, yeah, I said, I'll be honest with you, this country that we have now is not the country I signed up to defend. I'm like, I'll be honest, I did not know when I bled for this country that this is the country that I was bleeding for.
Mhm.
And he's like, oh crap. He's like, you're a vet? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what branch are you? And yeah, no, what MOS he asked were you? And I told him what MOS I was. He's like, oh, Army, huh? And then he told me a little bit about his backstory. And then he told me more about his backstory. Eventually we talked for quite a while. And his name's John Brieri, and he is a magnificent dude. Um, Much like myself, he's really faith-based, faith-aligned. He talks like I do, which is kind of funny. And
Mhm.
we talked about more and more people, I think, are coming to the conclusion of um, going back to faith. And we have a buddy that we were going to interview on here, and he reminds me. I mean, they are like so close to each other in the way they talk,
Mhm.
between our buddy Al
Mhm.
and this guy. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Al to see if he knows him, because Al knows everybody. Like, he just somehow he's one of those dudes who knows everyone.
Yeah.
And so uh he reminded me of him, and like instantly I liked this guy, like
Mhm.
instantly. And he prayed for me, like on the phone. He's like, I'm gonna pray for you and all these things. And um I was open and honest with him, and he was just a really, really good dude. And so I appreciated that. That's how often are you going to talk? Like, the CEO of a company calls and talks to you because, and he, in his own words, he doesn't get a chance to talk to anybody, and he likes to talk to like-minded individuals. And he's found that through this Black Scout survival deal, that most of the people that are ordering this because they recognize who Jack Richland is,
Mhm.
um, it's people like him who have the same philosophy and mindset. And it was crazy how it happened, but how awesome is that a CEO of a company that's worth like $140 million or whatever it is that his company's worth, which he told me, and I can't remember the amount, calls somebody, and he's like, I'm not telling you this to brag about it. I'm telling you because I owe all of it to God. And he then went on to tell me that he was humbled a second time by God because he had an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm, and he's been fighting his way back from it. So God bless
Crazy.
him. And
Yeah.
yeah, God bless him. I hope he's doing better and he can battle his way through and get back to 100%. But
Mhm.
just how awesome of a guy to call a customer and just be open and honest and have that dialogue for that long of a
Mhm.
phone call. Like, as a CEO, you could be like, yeah, I don't care, just process and whatever. Like,
Mhm.
but that amazed me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
I was thankful for the opportunity. I was thankful to have that conversation. And by the end of it, he's like, take my number, put it in your contacts. He's like, I knew I was gonna meet another brother in Christ today, and I appreciate that I got a chance to have this conversation with you. He's like, thank you for everything you've done. And he's like, and I'm gonna do some solids for you. And he's like, so I'm gonna get that order out to you. And he's like, I'll send you some other stuff with it, and you let me know what you think.
That's
And I'm like,
awesome.
man, that's just a really cool situation. I just to have that happen in contrast from hearing what all these other CEOs of these companies are doing. It's just
Mhm.
like, you can understand the difference, right? You can
Yeah.
take care of your customer and still make enough money to be happy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
for
And
sure.
do right by your people.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to throw that out there and thank him, because that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really
that's
cool.
when you told me the story, I was like, I honestly, I was like, I thought, because I was dealing with some stuff with the girls. I was like, I had to reread it several times. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like,
Dude,
it was just
if
crazy. Like he just called, like I missed something. Like your order got fucked up, right?
that's what I thought. Yeah, right. My bank canceled the whatever, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not only did he sent me a picture via text of his family so I could put a face to the name
Mm-hmm.
and the voice. And
That's crazy.
he's got a beautiful family, a great family. And we talked about I had made mention like my returning to faith was really in my military days after I had seen some of the stuff I had seen and lost some of my buddies. And, I basically I had an experience that really returned me to faith. And I said it was probably one of the more important things that has ever happened in my life, um, outside of the birth of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so, and he's like, he like kind of, I don't know, he made this noise on the phone, like it hit him in the feels, and he understood because he said the same thing. And he shared more of his experiences with me. And I was like, wow, you're the CEO of this amazing company and you're having a conversation with me. I'm a nobody to this guy, right? And we are thinking the same. And we kind of talked about how a lot of what's happening in this country and the way it's gone is making people like us, like you and me and him and others, and like our buddy Al,
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to see the same thing, and we are returning more to faith, and we are
Yeah.
allying with each other and having open and honest conversations, difficult conversations a lot of times, but we're doing the hard things that need to be done to secure this country because it is the greatest country on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you think so or not, I mean, if you don't think so, if you're one of those people that think this is the worst country on the planet, you're a moron. Go take your ass to Haiti.
Yeah.
Take your ass to Somalia. Take your ass to China.
Mm-hmm.
Go somewhere else that's bad and see if you can say the same things and do the same things. You still believe the United States is the worst country on the planet when you come back? Okay. Until then, you haven't traveled enough, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, when I sent you all that stuff yesterday, I was like still trying to process what had
Mm-hmm.
just happened. I was like, did this really just happen?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really cool story. Like, um, just for that chance, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it. Maybe one day I'll cover all of it, but yeah, he was a really, really good guy. And I appreciated the call. Like I appreciated him taking time out of his day just to reach out and talk. And like he said, like they don't let him talk much anymore because he's the
Yeah.
CEO. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm talking to you because usually when I reach out to people on the Black Scout survival deal, it's people like me that I want to talk to. And he's like, and I knew I was going to meet another brother in Christ today. And I'm glad. He's like, I'm saving your number. He's like, put yours in my contact, put mine in your contacts. And he left me
Mm-hmm.
with, if you ever need anything, don't be afraid to call. And
That's great. That's
I
crazy.
was,
Yeah.
wow. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just wow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a really awesome interaction. And if you're in the market, like we're not getting anything from these guys for US Night Vision. Like they're not supporting anything with us. We're not getting anything in return, but that will be for anything I need from now until forever. That's going to be the company that I use. Just out of that interaction alone.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy started his company with $14,000 and a thought
Mm-hmm.
before 9/11, and he's built it into what it is now. So,
Yeah.
uh, crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It shows you that there's still people out there that can do good and do right by their customer and aren't in it just for themselves and understand that uh, you can be humble. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can be humbled at any point in time.
Yeah. For sure.
Which leads me to my next thing. I am a little bit, I'm going to say this cautiously, and I'm going to get your opinion.
Cautiously because you don't want to upset me.
No, cautiously
Oh,
because
because you don't want to get kicked off YouTube.
not even that. I
Okay.
just, um, I don't want to jinx it.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I am going to say that we may be finally seeing the turn away from the wokeness, the embattlement between police and the BLM groups having so much control over legal channels, uh, and all that crap that's out there. I think we're finally starting to see the country start to turn back to truth and justice and stopping this crazy bullshit that we've seen take place for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I
Why
don't.
why do I say that? My I'm basing this off the Daniel Penny acquittal.
Hmm.
Um, if this is 2 years into Trump, or within the last 2 years of Trump, and the first 3 years of Biden, that guy goes to prison for life.
Hmm.
Um, he was acquitted, and for
Hmm.
those that don't know what happened, he was on a train. A homeless man who was deranged, crazy, had a knife, and was threatening people on the train. And Daniel Penny put him in a chokehold, and several other people also jumped in to help. And Daniel Penny ended up killing this man in a chokehold while the guy continued to fight. Um, he was acquitted on the murder charges or charges that were brought against him,
Hmm.
uh, because he thought he was doing what was right at the time, using force to stop another force, right?
Hmm.
The threats were being made, and he was showing the intent. This individual was showing the intent to cause physical harm to others, and Daniel Penny choked him out and ended up choking him to death. Um, and he was acquitted, and BLM was all up in arms about it.
Yeah, they still are.
They still are, of course they are.
Hmm.
Now, the reason why I think this is a turning point, I think people have caught on to the threats by BLM. What is BLM, right? It's
Hmm.
Black Lives Matter. But this is an organization that was started by Patrisse Cullors, who said herself that she was a devout Marxist with Marxist training and backgrounds, who this organization has raised over $1 billion, right? And they've spent none of it on the families of people who have been slain that they've raised the money off the
Hmm.
backs of.
Hmm.
They have returned none of the money to inner city community in black neighborhoods or black areas. It's not gone to anybody to put people into college or to do any good. What has it done? What has the $1 billion that they have raised done? Well, it's bought Patrisse Cullors 3 houses in California that she put her family in. It has bought others' houses that they have put their families in. And it has bought political candidates and district attorneys. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you still have, uh, you know, the death rates in Chicago, in Gary, Indiana, in Baltimore, in Minneapolis, in all these all these counties and states that have exploded, all these cities that have gone up, and Black Lives Matter has done nothing to fix that,
Hmm.
right? Now, remember, this is what happened when we argued, not we, but we as a country
Yeah.
together argued when Black Lives Matter would say Black Lives Matter, and then everybody agreed and said, yeah, all lives matter. And everyone's like, no, no, only Black Lives Matter. Um, Apparently, Black Lives Matter doesn't care about inner city communities killing each other and ripping each other apart, about gang violence, about the 98% of all black death coming from the hands of black men towards black men, right?
Hmm.
Um, they only care about making the money, and it's not being returned to their communities. And I think finally, and even now, and I think the biggest part of that is the black communities are starting to see that is bullshit. And they're starting to see, and I think what woke them up was the illegal immigration, these people being plopped down in their communities and having shit that was once being, set aside for them being ripped away from them,
Hmm.
and they're being replaced as a vote. Um, so I think people are waking up, and I think finally maybe we're starting to see, and I don't want to jinx it, we're starting to see the turning point with this wokeness and with the BLM bullshit. and with people being persecuted just for the sake of persecuting them based on color. What
Yeah.
do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think that it's there. I think there's obvious signs of it. I think it's been happening for a little while. I just think that now people aren't as afraid to say it,
Yeah. Yeah.
whereas people were thinking it for a while, right?
I think that's why this acquittal happened. They're not afraid to,
To stand up.
yeah, they're not afraid anymore. Like I said, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, this guy's guilty,
Hmm.
right? And if you didn't, they would have doxed you. They would have put your information online.
Yeah.
They would have found and dug through your past, and they would have
Hmm.
tried to cancel you for something you did in your past.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's a great explanation of it. I think people are starting to not be afraid.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I don't, I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but most of it I think is just that, people have finally realized that what the press is, right?
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of it's gaslighting from the press.
yeah, oh yeah, so
So,
much of it.
hmm,
Yeah, they've realized what they can and can't believe, and
yeah,
independent sources are probably where you're getting most of your truth at this point. People
hmm,
who are actually taking the time to look at stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a positive note that I see turning.
yeah. That's good. That's good.
I'd like to believe that that's where we can end this is on a positive note. That, hey, you know what? Trump is coming in. We got some good things in the process. We're starting to find some stuff out. We are moving in the right direction, and it's a sign. It's a sign. You know what I mean? It's a sign
Hmm.
that we are.
For sure.
Before we cut this off,
We
I
got.
have to.
Go ahead.
How much time do we have?
I don't know. We got as
Did
much time
you?
as we want.
Okay, I gotta talk about this. You know who Paul Bizanet is, right?
Yeah.
Spitting Chicklets.
Yeah.
Did you see his bar fight?
Oh yeah. Oh, I haven't seen the video yet.
Dude, you have to
I
watch him
I
on
read that. Did you see him talking about it? The video of him talking about it?
on Mac on
Uh,
Pat Mac's on his show.
no, I don't remember where was it on
Dude,
Pat Mack's show? I
yeah,
don't remember.
McAfee's show.
Why didn't he talked about it on his show first?
Oh, I'm sure he did, but you have to watch
I
McAfee's show.
okay, I have not
They
seen the
have
McAfee one.
they have the video. Biz is hilarious.
Hmm.
He breaks it down and talks about it. And bro, like I didn't know that these guys that did this were like straight Irish gypsies running around trying to rip people off. Did
Oh,
you know that?
I didn't know that part of it.
Oh, dude, watch McAfee's show, and I now I got to look for.
Did he see did he say so I heard I think I read it, maybe I didn't hear it. Or I listened to the clip from his show originally. And that he wished he could drop the charges in order to fight every one of them one on one.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Like he had asked about it.
yeah. Well, he's filing a civil lawsuit, right,
Hmm.
for what they did, and if he wants the one kid who kicked him in the head, or it was the other, because one dude kicked him in the head a bunch of times, and the other dude
Yeah.
punched him,
Yeah.
and he said, if you want me to drop the lawsuit, we're gonna do a charity boxing match or like a bare knuckle match, and we'll fight one on one.
Hmm.
And for those who don't know who Paul Bizanet is, he was in the NHL and he was a touch of a badass. He was an
Hmm.
enforcer
He was a
and
tough guy.
kicked the shit out of a lot of people.
Hmm.
And what happened in this, what I got to see in this in Pat Mack's video, is that these dudes were out at a golf course.
Yep.
That's where their night started. They were getting kicked out because the bar had to close at 6 o'clock. The course was shutting down. One of them was pissed off and he assaulted a waiter, punched him in the face about 3 times, hit a female waitress once. Um, and then the group left. The group left and went into a bar. This is in Arizona, in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Hmm.
The group left, found another bar, was already hammered. The police had already been called on them for what they did at the golf course. They went into the bar. Something happened in the bar. An altercation took place, and one of the managers threw out one of them.
Yeah. Tried
And the
to.
rest, no, he did. Threw him out, walked him outside. You're gone.
Okay.
And then the rest of them were in the bar, causing ruckus, and backed the manager up against the bar. And Bizinet was there having his dinner,
Hmm.
and he goes there quite frequently to eat, and
Yeah.
so he knows these people.
Yeah.
And he gets up and walks over, and he walked up to him and he said, "Hey, listen, if you guys don't leave this guy alone and stop assaulting him, we're gonna have to go outside and we'll have words." And then they started attacking him, and he fought back, and they brought him out in the parking lot, and he basically had to fight, 5 or 6 dudes.
Yeah, it was like 6 or 7 guys that
They jumped him.
they jumped him, but the fight started in the bar,
Yeah. Yep.
and then they got him
All the
outside,
way
and
from the
yeah,
bar, all the way across the parking lot, all the
yeah,
way into a CVS is where it ended.
yeah,
And he you don't get to see him knock a dude out, but he knocks one of them out. He knocks one of them out, leaves him on the ground contemplating his decisions.
yeah, yeah,
And then the rest kind of bum rush him and get him on the ground and kick him and do some other stuff. And he gets
Yeah.
up and he's hilarious and talking about it. And he gets up and he continues to fight. Well, then he realizes like there's not enough of him there. He can't.
yeah.
He can fight, but he can't fight 7 or 8 people.
7 guys at one time.
And so he takes off to the CVS and calls 911. And yeah, it's a good, yeah, I would like to watch it. But yeah, then his response was, yeah, if you want me to drop the civil lawsuit against you clowns, who apparently he hired a private investigator, Biz did, and they found the guys, and they're this group that goes around and they basically commit fraud and get people to give them money, and that's what they do. So it's a bunch of bullshit that they do, and there's more that's going to go into that. They're probably going to get arrested for the schemes that they're
Hmm.
playing,
Hmm.
and Biz talked about that. But he said, yeah, if you want me to drop the civil lawsuit against you, meet me in the ring.
Well, they all got charged too criminally.
Oh yeah, 7
And
of them.
so originally he had said that too, like before the lawsuit part was like, I wish I could drop all the criminal charges and just beat the shit out of them all one on one.
Yeah, and he would.
Oh, he
absolutely
absolutely would. None of those guys would survive that.
If there were 3 of them, they wouldn't have survived that. If there was 4 of them, they wouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
8 of them or whatever it was. I mean, there was a crowd of them around.
It was a
And,
crowd. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've watched that man fight a lot,
Hmm.
and you would not want to go one-on-one with him
No.
unless you're some sort of MMA guy or a boxer. You don't want to enter that.
Yeah.
That dude can take a punch, and that dude can throw a punch. I mean, he got kicked in the head like 4 times
Yeah.
in that video.
Still
and
got
he
up.
Still got up and was like, if there was only one-on-one, he would have, yeah, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I just wanted to see if you'd seen that yet because it was rather comical.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, it was good.
I've not seen that. I'll have to look up the McAfee show.
It's pretty good. McAfee does this thing, right? He does
Yeah,
the
of course.
introduction.
Yeah.
He does the introduction of it and puts his spin on it, and I laughed my ass off the whole way through. Yeah. Biz goes, if I had you there, Pat, if I had you there, the things would have been different. I just needed 1 or 2 more guys with me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and things would have been different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Spitting Chicklets is a hilarious show, and
Mhm.
that dude makes me laugh. Seeing him on the NHL Network makes me laugh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All these guys, all these podcast guys that are
Former.
starting to, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you see McAfee on ESPN now with Game Day and all that stuff.
Well, they're hilarious.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
absolutely hilarious, and they bring so much to the game. You know what I mean? Like they bring so much to the breakdowns. I mean, it's no different than the NBA with like Shaq and Chuck, and they're hilarious too. I mean,
they're funny. I just think I do think it's a little different just because of even with Shaq and Chuck, like it's still pretty scripted,
oh, for sure,
you know.
for
Whereas
sure.
like these guys, they're like you can watch Game Day and they'll like look at McAfee like, what the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking
well,
about?
I don't
Or
think
he'll
anybody.
just stop. He'll just stop and turn around and be like, that guy's wearing a duck head. Like,
Yeah, I don't think they will ever be able to keep McAfee under
No.
control. Like he's just,
yeah,
it's like he's ADD
yes,
and like, or he just tries to be. You know what I mean? Like that's his personality.
It's honestly, people will be like argue whatever they want, but to me, it's just he gets bored with the
Yes.
mundane stuff, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not necessarily his ADD. He wants to keep it live and exciting and point out
Well,
the exciting stuff, right? So like he'll
Yep.
talk about stuff happening in the crowd while someone else is talking about something he doesn't find interesting.
Right.
Like, I don't care.
Right.
Like look, that guy's
you
getting his
know.
hair cut right now.
You know that he is hilarious. Like,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In a room, that guy is in the room.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Like, liven it up. Everybody's sick of the whole, like, you got 10 old white fucking coaches on there that are all going to say the same thing. Bring the guy on that will bring some light to this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He's hilarious. I love his show too.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But...
I suppose let's wrap this up, man.
All right. Well, follow us on our social media pages.
Yeah.
I think we're still on YouTube.
Yeah, we haven't done anything to get kicked off of there yet, but I think we still have if my math is right, I think we have 9 more days.
Well, you want to talk about Fauci quick?
No, we'll do that in 9 days.
9 days.
9 days.
Next one will be in 9 days, guys.
Yeah. We'll do that in 9 days.
Celebrate by getting another one.
Yeah. Well, that's the plan, right?
Is that the plan?
No, we'll stay at a full count.
We've never really had a solid plan.
No, I mean, I'm just saying it's our plan, but we'll stay at a full count. Fuck YouTube.
Yeah, fuck YouTube. Sorry. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, we're on Truth. We are not on Blue Sky.
No.
No.
Nor will we ever be.
Nah, I got no interest in even typing that in. So, but check out our website, bluecollartakes.com. You can get all the links there.
Yeah. Yep, we appreciate you all for following along and listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Blue Collar Takes. Oh, and fuck YouTube.